Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much, Jack61. It's great to be here. Welcome, beautiful people. Welcome for the next installment of the Reading with the Crew series. We're actually on part 28 today, episode 28, and it's been great. We have received a lot of great feedback, and all I can say is that last week's episode, right, Jack61, was a very, very lively, very controversial, and it's great. And it really is great getting a lot of feedback. I read all the comments, spent a lot of time, and got a lot more new slides. Got a lot more new slides to present at the beginning of the podcast, which is great. And again, guys, thank you so much. It's been really, really fantastic. And today we're going to be continuing chapter 14, Canine Noses. And to me personally, and also to Neverly, both Neverly and I have been doing research into this particular chapter, and it really has been eye-opening, right, guys? I thought it was going to take...
It has been for me, Doc, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be maybe 1 or 2 podcasts maximum, but I tell you what, the more we read, the more we discovered. And also, guys, I want to thank everyone in chat for your great questions, because those questions allowed me and other members of the Foul Play team to go back to the original material, documents, and we dived even deeper, which is awesome. And we're on part 5 at the moment. And so for those who are new, welcome. What we're doing is we're reading specific passages from John Ferak's book entitled The Wrecking Crew. And as I say at the beginning of every podcast, please, these are the thoughts of John Ferak. They don't necessarily represent our thoughts here at Foul Play, but we all do believe that The Wrecking Crew is an excellent book, especially if you're new to the Stephen Avery. It's mainly more about Stephen Avery, the Stephen Avery case. The only thing that we ask, guys, is please, it is absolutely important that you do your own research and that you come up to your own conclusions. Take what we say as a grain of salt. It's very important to expand upon what we discuss here on our podcasts. And it's very important to do your own research, come up to your own conclusions, right? That's very important. We're not telling you what to think. But, however, the Foul Play team has amassed a huge amount of documents on our website, and it's been very, very popular. A lot of hard work by Jack61 and others who have FOIA documents, and we've placed them in the library for you to do your own research. And we love to hear about it. Over the past week or so, we've had many great discussions regarding Cuss Road, the dogs, what they mean, what they don't mean. And it's been a great series of discussion. I know that Jeff Jones did a live recently, Jack61 was on it, where they discuss Cuss Road and other things as well. And everyone's opinion is very important, right? So hopefully what we're trying to do here, guys, is we're trying to find the truth to what happened to Teresa Halbach, whose life was tragically taken at a tender age of 25 years, right? And she very likely died on October the 31st, 2005. So we're here to find out what actually happened. And going through John Ferak's book has been an eye-opening experience. I knew probably about this much about the canines and what they did and what they found. Hopefully through this series of podcasts, we all learn together, right? So we're trying to show that what happened at Cuss Road was indeed a significant event, right? So guys, I'm not going to waste any time. If you like what we do, please subscribe, like, and share our work, right? The more people that can get to see these podcasts and comment, the better. And again, guys, all of us here from the Foul Play team, thank you so much for rolling up each week and hearing us talk. So I'm not going to waste too much time because we have a lot to cover. I want to introduce to you guys our esteemed panel. And the first person is Jack61. Jack61, how are things coming along?
Doing pretty good today, Doc. Had a little bit of a late start, but still had, I try to get on and prepared, early, but all taken care of. Doing very well, and had a lot of really good discussions about the dogs, of course, the cadaver and tracking dogs, and a lot of really good discussions about the phone calls from that time frame as well.
Awesome.
Yeah, there's
Awesome.
been, because it tells its own story of what we have and what I feel certain that they did not include. I'm talking about even with the new material that we got last year, the new 2022 open records request. I feel certain that there are conversations that we were not, what they just removed them, and it really irritates me. But nonetheless, it tells its own story. We found out a few more really golden nuggets. One specifically was about the November 7th, and this reporter calls in and talks to, I can't remember if it's I think it's Lieutenant Syme, and says, "Hey, Petrovsky just rolled up in here and said you guys found a dead body."
Yeah.
This is November. This is right here at Cuss Road.
You're
And,
right here at Cuss Road.
and this was a range call. I don't know exactly when that call came in, but it had to be around 11, 12 o'clock range, 11 a.m., 12 o'clock. So sometime
Yes,
not long after this bullshit here with Bushman.
correct.
So where the hell did he get that from? He says he heard this on the police scanner. It's like, wait, what? Well, we don't have any of that shit, you know.
No,
So anyway, it's been interesting. I mean, that was a really good one. There's been other ones too, and then of course yesterday the big news of finding a home on
yes,
this streaming service, and that's coming probably here in the next couple of months. So that's gonna be interesting.
it will be very interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Jack61.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And next we have Alice. Alice, good to see you here. How are you coming along?
Hi, Doc. Hi, everyone on panel. Yeah, doing okay, Doc. Looking forward to what slides and that you've come up with for this episode. This series that we've done has been absolutely brilliant, and I
Thank
see the
you.
comments and things that people are leaving on the videos and things like that, which is absolutely fantastic. So looking forward to seeing what else you've got, and hi to everyone in chat as well.
Thank you so much, Alice. Great to see you here. And next we have, I don't recall. How are you coming along?
I'm doing well, and want to say hello to everybody and looking forward to reading with the crew.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And next we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, welcome. Welcome. Good to see you here.
Thank you. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's been a busy few weekends for me with different things off and on, so I've been kind of popping in and out here and there, so I apologize for that, but I
No,
think
not at
my
all.
rest of my day today is free, so I should be here for the duration, but it's great to be here. It's great to see everybody in chat and looking forward to what's coming next.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And Alice, are you able to call out our good friends who are in chat? Thank you, everyone.
I sure can. Let me just scroll up the top here and I'll work my way down. We've got the lovely Dark Side. Hi, Dark Side. We've got Andy B. Hey, Andy B. We've got Jazz Naz. We've got Just Rhonda's in the chat as well. We've got Pete Moss. We've got Gloria.
Welcome.
We have Colette M. We've got JD. We've got Duke 11. Hi there, welcome. We've got
Welcome.
Smokey. We've got Angie Dickinson. Hi Angie, lovely to see you back. We've got Anthony Hills. We have Graham Moss. We've got Audra M. We've got Ronald D. Class. We have Iced Coffee with us. We've got
Welcome.
Disco Pervert with us. Hi, Disco. Lovely to see you in chat. Not seen you for a while. Hope you're keeping well, Mrs. We've got Sherilyn Pontillo. We have Nan's Life. We've got Rumour Has It. We have Travis Esquire. Hi, Travis. Lovely to see you in
Welcome.
chat. We've
Welcome.
got Under Your Scars, and we have Mark Kaz. That's all we've got at the moment. Hi, guys, to each and every one of you. Fantastic to see you all back in the chat with us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alice. And remember, guys, we're very interactive. If you've got any questions, please put them down in chat and we'll try and answer them during the show. But guys, if you have a theory or hypothesis, please discuss it on Discord, right? Because we're trying to run a tight ship here. We're trying to get through the podcast. And so if you've got any great ideas or hypothesis and things like that, come to Discord and discuss it there. Right, Jack61?
Yeah, Doc, can I spend like 15
course.
seconds? I want to say something
No
about
problems
last
at
week.
all. No problems at all.
You know, and this is a bit of an apology to, kind of an apology, but because we diverted so far last week to try and answer this guiltless questions, and you know, it really turned argumentative, and it really just kind of followed up on our Discord, and it resulted in. I'm just going to be straight with you. I removed him because we don't need that. If they want to come and have a civil discussion, that's great. I'm all for it, and so is Doc and everyone else here. But if you're willing to ask questions, you should be willing to answer some too, right? And they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. They just wanted to argue, and then you know we get accused of being rude. And well, hell, we spent over an hour answering this person's questions out of our normal program that Doc and Daryl have put together. The hell, we were rude. We were more than I think straight.
I think we're very accommodating.
I do too.
I think
so. I just wanted to say that, and as Doc said, let's try to keep the train on the tracks, as it were.
Correct. But look, thank you so much, Jack61. And I noticed that you put up the warning for potential harsh language. So please, guys, if you're sensitive to that, we may occasionally let off the occasional F-bomb. Right, Alice?
But me, Doc, not me. I'm a good girl. I don't swear.
Correct. But
just before you start again, Doc, we've got Juggler in chat.
Oh, nice.
That's a new name. I haven't seen them in chat before, so welcome to Juggler. Glad you've managed to catch a live. Any questions you have, please don't hesitate to put them in chat, and if we can get to them, we will get to them as soon as we can. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you so much, guys. We always welcome new people. Like I said, guys, please respect each other in chat, respect the people on the panel, and also a big welcome to our mods and our super mods who keep the show running. Thank you so much. And I'll tell you what, Jack61, social media, Reddit, Twitter has really lit up over the cadaver dogs and the scent dogs, and also cuss words.
Absolutely.
It really has exploded, which is awesome, because we're going to ask some real tough questions. And speaking of questions, Jack61, are we able to have the very first slide, which is slide A? Yeah, so we'll just wait till that comes up. So guys, we'll start the podcast. And as Jack61 alluded to, there were a lot of questions in last week's podcast, and we're not going to shy away. We're going to try and answer some of these questions, which are very relevant to the podcast series that we're doing, entitled Canine Noses. Now, we know from the state's perspective that nothing pertinent took place at Cuss Road. From the state's perspective, they just said that they found an old peat moss bag and a rotting pallet. It had nothing to do with anything. And Sister Susan, a couple of weeks ago, asked one of the most brilliant questions I've heard in a long time. And that is, if the state had found something of significance, why didn't they try and pin it on Stephen, right? Because Cuss Road is literally down the road from Stephen Avery's trailer. So that was a very interesting question, and it really is very, very hard to answer. There had to be a reason. Now, a question was asked last week, and what we're going to try and do is prove that what happened at Cuss Road is really significant. It's not just a peat moss bag and a rotting wooden pallet, right, Jack 61? Right, guys? Something major was found, and it was deep sixed. It was suppressed, right? That's a personal opinion. Everyone may differ in their opinion, but we're going to prove to you, or hopefully prove to you, that something significant actually took place. Jack 61.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way because even as inept as we see a lot of these different things that the MTSO, CASO, and even the DCI, some of the things that they did, I just had this real doubt that they would have came and spent. Let's just say that Bushman found it, his team found it at 10:30. They get there quarter to 11 o'clock, start setting up, and they're there until after dark. Let's just say
Correct.
7 o'clock, 7:30. So here we are moving into 10 hours of them being there over an old peat moss bag and a rotten pallet.
And a wooden pallet. Correct.
Fucking shit. I'm sorry.
Well,
Not only that, Doc, we have to remember, and we got to say it, they blocked the road.
yes,
They would not allow anyone down there, and they put up probably a mile or more of crime scene tape.
that's correct.
No way. No way.
Correct. So what we're going to do is we're going to prove to you that the state lied. The state are covering something major at Cuss Road. So if we have a look at the very first slide here. Now, if you're familiar with the case and you looked at this picture, the very first thing you're going to say is the guy in the red and black coat is none other than Tom Fassbender, right? But for those who are new to the case, how do we actually know that's Tom Fassbender, right? Now, Fassbender, Tom, was the co-lead investigator. And Tom complained non-stop that the reason why they had to get search warrant after search warrant after search warrant, and the reason why they were at the Avery salvage yard for days is because they lacked resources, right? Right, Jack 61. Right, guys. That was the number one complaint. Buting and Strang and everybody else asked Fassbender, hey, how come it took you so long to do your searches? And Tom said, it's because we lacked resources. Now, what is remarkable is that on average, if you look at the login, logout sheets, there were over 100 officers, right, Jack 61? On average, over 100 officers present on any day.
That's right. That's exactly right. Sometimes far more than that.
Correct. And there were agencies, there were people from all different agencies, search and rescue, a helicopter team, a diving team, the fire brigade, you name it, they were there. And so the question must be asked is, okay, if Cuss Road was truly nothing but a peat moss bag and a rotten wooden pallet, what the hell is the co-lead investigator doing at Cuss Road? Why is he wasting his time at Cuss Road, right? Now remember, the co-lead investigator, it was both him and Mark Wiegert. They're charged to find Teresa Hallbach and, of course, other forensic evidence. And we can clearly see here, this individual, if you've done the case for quite a while, is none other than Tom Fassbender, but I'm going to prove it to you that it is. So have a look at this picture. Have a look at the color of the hair, the shape of the hair, the red and black jacket that Tom Fassbender or this guy is wearing. He's got a tall, lanky disposition, and have a look at the shoes, the color of the shoes, right? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. So quite clearly, if you've spent a lot of time on this case, it's an easy one. That's Tom Fassbender at Cuss Road. Now, that picture, the previous picture, was taken on November the 7th. But if you have a look at this picture here, this is Tom Fassbender. I think he's with Mark Wiegert on November the 5th on the Avery salvage yard, standing in front of the Teresa's Toyota RAV4, right? The car's underneath a tarp. And you can see it's exactly this individual, Tom, and the first picture have got exactly the same hair color, hair shape, red and black coat, tall and lanky, and the shoes. If Jack 61 shows the shoes down the bottom, it's the same type of shoes. The pants are slightly different, of course, but the shoes, everything is exactly the same, right? And he's got a very distinct body shape, a stance, and the red and black jacket are exactly the same. There's no question it's Tom Fassbender. But if you have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, slide C, I just happened to find a picture of Tom Fassbender in exactly the same pose. Right, guys? The same pose as he was at Cuss Road. The same angle. And you can see, guys, I think you'll agree. Same hair color, same hair shape, same red and black jacket. And you can't see the shoes, but his stance is exactly the same. So there's no question, and there are a lot of other photographs that show Tom Fassbender was indeed at Cuss Road. Jack 61.
There's no doubt that's Fassbender. There's no doubt.
Yeah. And so if we have a look at the next slide, so guys, don't just trust the photographs. If you have a look at the next slide, this truly is remarkable. Alice, can you see slide D?
Yep, I sure can.
Yep. Would you like to read it out, please? This is Tom Fassbender in Stephen Avery's pre-trial. Read it out to Alice if you can.
We had that clandestine site. We had reports of some bones found on some property west of this area that Mark and I actually went out on because there was no one available. Technicians available that we checked that.
Okay. Now, at Jack 61, guys on the panel and people in chat, you have to admit, this is as damning as you get. This is Tom's own words in Stephen Avery's pre-trial, and you can clearly see he talks about clandestine site. He talks about reports of some bones. Right, Jack 61?
He's trying to talk around it. He's trying to talk all around what they found. He knows what they found, and he's trying to obfuscate it and deflect it.
Correct. He mentions some bones. He doesn't mention peat moss bag. He doesn't mention rotten wooden pallets. He specifically mentions an anatomical feature from a human being, bones, right? And he's specific about that. And not only that, he said on some property west of this area. The only property that's west of the Avery salvage site and had a clandestine burial site and was a private property is none other than Cuss Road. Jack 61.
Yeah, that's Cuss Road.
Right.
He's spelling it out right there.
He spelled it out in court in front of Buting and Strang that he went to investigate reports of some bones. So quite clearly, not only is Tom Fassbender at Cuss Road, the co-lead investigator, Mark Wiegert, is also present. And Jack 61, that means that Mark Wiegert and Fassbender likely got the report either from Mike Bushman himself or from Diedering. Just Rhonda, do you have a comment?
I do. I need some reminders of what day was this that the picture's taken on at Cuss Road,
Uh,
first one.
November the 7th. November the 7th.
Okay. And Ken Kratz hadn't been assigned to special prosecutor yet.
Oh, yes, he had.
Yes, he had
Okay.
already been
I
assigned
think
special
that's
prosecutor.
I think that's Ken Kratz standing to the right of Fassbender in that first picture. I know we're past
Isn't
that
that
now, but
interesting? Yeah, there was we were wondering whether Kratz was actually down at Cuss Road as well. But there's no doubt from Fassbender's own words, both him and Mark went down to Cuss Road to investigate reports of bones. Jack 61.
Oh, damn, sorry. Go ahead.
No. So what is important here, guys, is he says that no one was available. No technicians were available. So they went down there. That means, guys, both Tom Fassbender and Mark Wiegert went to Cuss Road prior to Ertul showing up in the crime lab. Right, Jack 61?
That's exactly right.
Right. So, guys, this is not us making it up. These are the words of Fassbender himself. He actually admitted in front of Buting and Strang that at the clandestine burial site, there were bones. Someone discovered bones. So if it's a clandestine burial site, it means that they had already done pre-digging to determine what was in that clandestine burial site. Tom Fassbender makes it very clear. He went to find out reports of bones. Susan, do you have a comment? And thank you for joining us. No, she disappeared.
she's having real issues. I remember what I was going to say a minute ago. You talked about Bushman's report, and we played that recording because we don't have the chain of how it actually went, but that report came out on a portable radio that Bushman called in. We don't know who alerted Wiegert and Fassbender, but clearly that went through the chain somewhere, and they got him out there pretty quickly.
Yep, correct, 100% correct. Now, I know this has been a very controversial area. Mike Bushman was semi-retired, but someone called out Mike Bushman to be part of a search team. And normally when somebody is called out, they normally have an expertise in a particular area. And Jack 61 or anybody else in panel, what do we know Mike Bushman, what was he associated with? Alice, do you remember?
Dogs. He had his own dogs.
Canine unit.
Yeah,
correct. Mike Bushman was actually part of a canine unit, and don't worry, later on I'll actually prove it to you. Who he was involved with. It's going to blow your mind. But you're absolutely correct, guys. Mike Bushman had experience with canine dogs, and in particular, scent dogs. Right, so keep that in the back of your mind. Alice, do you have a comment?
It's actually Travis in chat. He's asking, so is he talking about two different sites there? He says a clandestine site in the parallels of law enforcement investigator is a drug location. So has he clarified what he meant by clandestine before or after this particular location?
This is the only time that I recall him mentioning clandestine site. Whatever was found at Cuss Road was always referred to as a clandestine site. There's no other mention, as far as I'm aware, of any other clandestine site, and certainly no mention of bones. Now, of course, we know that human cup burnt bones were found in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, which Kratz did not want to talk about. So when you look at his statement, the only thing that makes sense as being a property west of the site, and the area they were talking about was the Avery salvage site that was referred to as the site. The only time that a clandestine burial site or a clandestine site was mentioned was always at Cuss Road. Jack 61, but thank you for that question.
Yeah, that was a good question, Travis, and Doc is right.
Yes.
It's also mentioned by Fallon in his reply to Buting and Strang in September of 06. He also called
Correct.
it the clandestine burial site or something to that effect.
Correct, and we've got documentation of that. So the most common thing here, guys, is the mentioning of bones, right? Now, if you're a co-lead investigator and someone reports the finding of bones, you definitely would want to be present at that site, right, Jack 61? Right, guys? That's definitely a site of interest, especially if you haven't found Teresa Hallbark at this stage. Jack 61.
Absolutely, because they were, they were going crazy trying to find something. They really were. They were going everywhere to try to find something to tie it to Stephen. And that's why we see these extreme moves that they made throughout this so-called investigation, trying to tie something around Stephen's neck to nail him with.
Correct. And Brian Zolo in chat talks about the fact, Cuss Road occurred on November the 7th, and then on November the 8th, that's where they start finding all the crucial forensic evidence against Stephen. And of course, the cremains that all of a sudden appear in Stephen Avery's burned pit. So, is it a coincidence or what? Another, as Big Jeff used to say, another man miracle. All right. So, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So, quite clearly, Tom Fassbender was at Cuss Road. There's no question about it. All right. Now, a big controversy was looking at the actual crime scene and comparing it to the crime scene between what occurred at Cuss Road and what occurred at Stephen Avery's burn pit. Now, there's no doubt, and the point was raised, that crime scene tape is put up to preserve a crime scene. That's why you put crime scene tape. You want to preserve a crime scene. You want to make sure that no dogs, no human beings, no members of the public come in and disturb what you believe to be found forensic evidence. But the point here is look at the difference between Cuss Road and Stephen Avery's burn pit. And the difference is the amount of resources that were placed at Cuss Road and the literally kilometers of crime scene tape that was placed at Cuss Road, and you compare it to the very simple construction of the crime scene around the burn pit. Jack 61.
Yeah, especially for the new people, as the doc said, pay attention here to this cul-de-sac area, and the crime scene tape starts actually off picture here. We can't see where it actually starts, but it's on down a little ways. It travels all the way up. This is Deer Camp Road up here at the top where my cursor is. That crime scene tape continued on down for several, I'm going to say a couple hundred yards at least. I don't know exactly. It went way the hell on down there. So they had this entire grid here blocked off. And then they had it blocked off over here. And then, of course, down here where you see the red circle, I'll zoom in on it here in a second. As Doc has got outlined here, this is the clandestine burial site.
Correct. You can actually see the blue tarp. So notice there's a huge amount of resources which are down at Cuss Road. We know that Tom Fassbender was at Cuss Road, Mark Wiegert was at Cuss Road, and Just Rhonda could be right. Ken Kratz may have been at Cuss Road as well, because it would have been a site of interest. We know that the crime lab was there. We know that there was a truck that dropped off lights, floodlights, and the floodlights were used at night. And the fact that the crime scene tape was approximately, now wait for it, 120 feet from the clandestine burial site. It clearly, as people in chat said, this was a no-go zone. They didn't want anyone stepping foot onto even the grass area. Now, you compare it to Stephen Avery's burn pit, where Teresa's own cremains were found. And what you notice is that the crime scene tape is not 120 feet away. It's more like about 10 or 20 feet away from the burn pit. Anyone could get up really close and personal to the burn pit. Now, I checked a couple of websites dealing with how do you process crime scenes. And the rule of thumb is this: wherever you find potential forensic evidence, you double the distance to where you put up the crime scene tape. So if, for example, if that tarp is 10 feet across, then at the 20-foot mark, you put crime scene tape, because that gives you plenty of space to keep people out. Now, Jack 61, if you notice the crime scene tape around the burn pit, that's about right? So whoever put up the crime scene tape at Stephen Avery's burn pit actually got it right. It's about double the distance of where the tarp is. That makes sure that no cadaver or scent dog can go right on top of the burn pit, on top of the tarp, because there was a concern that potentially a cadaver dog or a scent dog could urinate on the forensic evidence or defecate. And that's a possibility. So you want to make sure that you do not contaminate the crime scene. Jack 61.
Sorry, Doc, I forgot to remute.
Yeah. So the way you see the crime scene tape around the burn pit is standard operating procedure, right? And that allegedly is for Teresa's cremains. But if you have a look at Cuss Road, the way Cuss Road has been set up makes no sense at all, guys, because the crime scene tape is over 120 feet away, right? It should have been maybe 20 feet away. A nice tight perimeter around the clandestine burial site. That's enough distance to prevent any cadaver dog, any scent dog for coming too close and potentially urinating or defecating near where the clandestine burial site was. Now remember, guys, when Loof made a beeline for the crime scene tape, she was prevented, Fosk was prevented from crossing the crime scene tape by Pagel. They didn't even allow Loof to get, say, within 50 feet of the clandestine burial site. And this is crazy, right, guys? Loof could have gone somewhere else and maybe picked up something else, another object that gave off a scent source, right? The whole purpose of the scent dog is to determine the source of the scent. Was there something at Cuss Road? Was there something at the clandestine burial site that gave off the scent of Teresa Horbach? Jack 61.
I can't remember if we discussed or not. I think we did. We've talked about so much, but I can't remember if it was Fausk. I think you talked about Fausk in her report after they had been there for hours. They told her that
Correct.
she could go ahead and bring the dog in, and she was pretty pissed about it because they'd been all in that area, and she said, well, I'll try. And Luke
Correct.
just basically just refused to do it.
Correct. In actual fact, guys, they actually overworked Loof on that day. Loof had to do so many tracks again that in the end, Loof just refused to do any more work. She was completely tired. So guys, can you see that if you're going to use a cadaver and a scent dog, you use them immediately before anything is contaminated or shifted or moved, because the source of the scent is the most strongest when it's in situ. Guys, do you agree? That's when you use your cadaver and your scent dogs, not when you've dug up the potential burial site.
Absolutely, Doug. Absolutely. You
Correct.
bring them in and let them do their thing, and because dogs
Let
don't
them.
give a shit.
That's right. Let them do their thing. If you're concerned about a dog urinating or defecating near where forensic evidence is, because it can happen, and it did happen in another case, put the dog on a tight leash. Keep the dog 10 to 20 feet away from the clandestine burial site. Does Loof go directly to the clandestine burial site? Because remember, Loof is centered with Teresa Hallbach. Alice, do you have a comment, please?
Travis in chat says, I think you're looking at two different purposes for the yellow tape. The burn pit is within a police prohibited area. Roads closed. Family were removed from the property. Yeah, but still, look at the amount that's at Stephen's garage, the burn pit, which is supposed to be the crime scene.
Correct.
There is more tape on Cuss Road than there is round that garage. I mean, in my opinion, it should be round the garage, it should be round the burn pit, it should be up the side of the garage in the burn pit, it should be round the whole of the trailer. That should be off in sections with the crime tape, like they've done on Cuss Road. But it's for it to be nothing on Cuss Road, why have all that equipment and people and crime scene tape? Because that tape is only supposed to be up if it's a crime scene and you don't want anybody going on it or passing it, or as Doc says, the dog's urinating on it or whatever.
Correct. Correct.
So to me, there should have been a hell of a lot more crime tape on Stephen's property than there should be on Cuss Road.
Well, the thing is that there's a couple of questions here. Yes, Cuss Road, I believe, is a public road, and Cuss Road was actually blocked at both ends, right? The cul-de-sac was blocked at both ends by state troopers, which meant that they controlled traffic right through that area there. The clandestine burial site was on someone's property. It didn't belong to the county, but quite clearly all they had to do was a small square around the clandestine burial site, keep people out. This is an excessive control of the area, right? There's no two ways about it. As Jack 61 said, the crime scene tape went all the way up to the deer camp, and in actual fact, they circled one of the garages, one of the burn barrels, and there was crime scene tape everywhere. You don't set up a crime scene like this if you don't think it's a crime scene. These are seasoned investigators. It would have taken them 5 minutes to determine whether it was a site of significance or nothing to see here at all. Time to move on. And for Tom Fassbender to cry foul that they lacked resources, this, if it really turned out to be a peat moss bag and a rotten pallet, this is a massive waste of time, energy, and effort. And not only that, guys, remember, the team was out there doing 3D measurements, right, guys? 3D measurements of an area that was not pertinent to the case. Alice, do you have a comment?
Craig Swalby has joined us in chat. Hi,
Welcome.
Craig. Nice
Welcome.
to see you. Thanks for joining us. He says there's a missing woman case. A search for a woman is being conducted, and the deputies of Shannon County, they're using drones, but they're also using specially trained dogs to comb the area for the missing person. So that could be the scent dogs that they're using. I mean, it's amazing what these dogs can be used for. You know, they can be used for finding humans, they can be used for finding blood, they can be used for,
Correct.
like you said, decomposing bodies, people who have been murdered, people who have been underwater for
Underwater as well. Correct.
ages. You know what I mean? They can
Correct.
sense that. So I think that's a really good idea, Craig, that the deputies are using drones and the dogs. You know, sometimes you've
Correct.
got to move with the technology that comes up, you know, just like DNA. I mean, the DNA testing that got done in 2005 and that, where
It's
Luke's case,
primitive.
the
It
Stephen
is
case,
primitive.
and that wasn't as good as
No.
what it is now, because there's new techniques and ways to get it, like MVAC and things like that, you know. So it's
Yeah.
progressed. So for them to progress using drones and search dogs for a missing person or a murder or something like that, I think is a great idea, because they're combining the two things
Yeah.
together, you know, combining like the old and the new sort of
Yes.
thing, by using the drones as the new, but still using the noses and things like that, the scent dogs
Correct.
that they've been using for decades, you know.
Correct. Yes. Now thank you, Alice. Now, guys, I'm not arguing. The investigators did the right thing. The investigators brought in the dogs. They brought in cadaver dogs. They brought in scent dogs. They brought the best of the best. My argument is, did the investigators use the canines effectively? And the answer is a resounding no way. This is the issue. You bring in a cadaver dog, you prevent the cadaver dog from getting close. You bring in a scent dog that comes all the way from Stephen Avery's trailer, all the way down across the cornfield, and is heading straight to where you are at the cul-de-sac, and likely wants to cross the crime scene tape and head towards the so-called clandestine burial site. Like I said, clearly that tape was placed 120 feet away. No one could actually get close to the clandestine burial site. And think about it. If Sarah Forsk with Loof went right up to the clandestine burial site, say within 10 or 20 feet, to make sure that Loof could not urinate or contaminate the clandestine burial site, it meant that Forsk would have had to have written a report, a formal report, which she would have handed in. So you've got a witness to say, this is what I encountered. This is what my dog encountered. My dog gave a high alert and barked at the clandestine burial site. Jack 61.
Well, you know, there's some conversation about, maybe we're basically looking at this the wrong way. And, I guess that's potentially true. I guess that just from the reasonable, the law firm of Big Jeff that we have, I just try to look at it from a reasonable standpoint. And to me, when Bushman makes this call in, Doc, and everyone, when he makes this call in, and he's asking for an investigator to come down, that's what he said in the radio transmission. And then he comes back on the radio and says, and bring a shovel. And then there was
Correct.
then
Correct.
there was a little bit more conversation about some items being found there. Okay, let's just break this down just briefly, and I
Yeah.
swear I'll be short. He finds this whatever the hell it is. He calls it
Yep.
in. They send
Yep.
some guys up. They send some guys over there. Okay, to me, Doc, why didn't I mean I know that probably what they had to get permission or write a search warrant, which they did.
Yes.
For that property, and that had to be done. I get it. So there was a delay in time. At the same time, during this delay, they could have, one way or the other, they could have dug, because they had the search warrant in hand. That
Yes.
They didn't sort. It was unfiled. But they had it. I don't think it would have been a problem getting a judge to sign it. But they did all this other stuff in connection, blocking
But
of
Jack
the road.
61. But Jack 61, you raise a very important point. They had the search warrant in hand.
Yeah.
And Tom Fassbender just said that both himself and Mark Wiegert went down to investigate these reports of bones. And
That's
now
right.
when you look at the unearthed, when you look at the Disturbed Earth search warrant that was written by none other than Mark Wiegert, when you look at the detail in that warrant, the incredible amount of detail that insinuated that they're going to find the remains of Teresa Halbach at the clandestine burial site, it means that they had foreknowledge. I'm sorry, guys. I know I'm stretching it, but Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender had foreknowledge of what was there. Jack 61.
It's really not, I mean, I'm like you, Doc. I hesitate to make these leaps of faith, but this
Correct.
one's not really. This one's not really a hard. That's not a hard leap for me to make.
It's a
It really
logical
isn't.
leap. It's a logical leap.
It is, given what we see. And Travis raised a good question. Who testified about this in court? Well, they kept it out.
Nobody.
They buried
Nobody.
it.
Nobody.
Kratz did not want this shit brought up at all.
No. The important thing here, thank you so much, Jack61. I'll get you back on in a second. Just to answer Travis, no one talked about Cuss Road, right? Erdl testified that when he got there, he just found an old peat moss bag and a rotten pallet. That was it. Bushman never wrote a report. Bushman was never called up to testify. Bushman's name only appears 3 times in the entire CASO report. There's nothing. For this, all for the purpose of the state, Cuss Road is a no-show. There's nothing to see here, right? No one came up and said, this is what we did at Cuss Road. These were all the people that are at Cuss Road. I don't even think I've seen a check-in and check-out sheet for everyone that showed up at Cuss Road. Jack 61.
They didn't create one, and they should have. And not only that, if it was nothing, I mean, they spent. And look, guys, if it was nothing, this is just a massive embarrassment. It is a massive embarrassment if there was nothing there. I'm sorry.
Correct.
I mean, and I know that people believe whatever you want. I'm okay with it. We just agree to disagree. But I definitely think they found something there more than. And I think they found several items.
No doubt in my mind. And Anthony Hills made the best comment so far, and I 100% agree, and I'll prove it. He said Erdl was not in the know. You got it. You hit the nail on the head. And I'll prove to you that Erdl was really, really upset with Tom Fassbender. Remember that email exchange, Jack 61? We'll show it at the end. There's something really funny going on. Yep. Because remember, Jack 61, wherever Erdl went, he had a photographer, a crime scene photographer with him. Zang. Zang, I dare anyone to show me a picture, and I hope they exist, of a peat moss bag and a rotten wooden pallet, and also any bone found at Stephen Avery's burn pit. If you've got those photos, I would love to see them. Everyone on the panel and everyone in chat would love to see them, because John Erdl was everywhere with his photographer. We don't see anything. Jack 61.
Hey, Doc, you know what? Kratz says that he's got, they're going to be showing a bunch of shit and convicting that we've never seen before. One presented it, in MAM. Maybe he's got it.
I hope so. Maybe he's got it.
He don't.
Maybe he's got it. But but what Anthony Hills said is correct. They did to him what they did to the state's coroner. They didn't let the coroner become involved. Now, that as soon as you find one bone, you don't know whether it's an animal bone or a human bone. It's tools down, guys. You call the coroner or forensic anthropologist, right? And that brings us to the next slide. Brilliant segue. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So I'd ask myself, well, how in the hell do you examine a clandestine burial site, right? I found an Australian article written by Brendan Chapman. He's a forensic scientist. He's a law enforcement officer, I believe. And what he does is they set up actual workshops on how to properly process a clandestine burial site, right? And you can see from the title here, if you type it in, you can go to the article. It basically states How do police forensic scientists investigate a case? A clandestine grave site recovery expert explains. Now, Jack 61, Alice, I don't recall, just Rhonda. What do you note is actually present at that clandestine, the so-called clandestine site? Looking at this photograph, what do you immediately see, Alice?
Oh, well, they've done a grid. You know,
They have
the
done
thing
a grid.
that we're supposed to do and put it into sections and move it section by section. You know, the thing that was invisible at Avery's pit.
Correct.
Plus they got the bodysuits on. They got the bodysuits on it and masked up.
Correct. So, guys, can you see these guys are investigating the clandestine burial site very, very carefully and very, very judiciously. They're all suited up, they've got gloves on, and they've got a grid. Because remember, if you think you found the clandestine burial site, how the hell do you know it's a clandestine burial site if you don't dig in, right, guys? You got to dig it to find out what you've got, unless you bring ground penetrating radar, right? So you can see, and my mind was blown. There is a proper procedure of what you do to check a clandestine burial site. Now, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So this is standard. Yeah, Alice.
Sorry, Doc, but I mean, I'm sorry, but you don't need to be a forensic fucking expert to know that when it comes to something like that and you are looking for evidence, I don't care whether it's a clandestine burial site or an archaeological site, that something's been there for millions of years. You see it all the time. It is that grid pattern that they do. I mean, I'm really fascinated with Oak Island at the moment.
Yes.
And the things that those guys, now they own parts of that property, you know, they own lots on Oak Island and they own quite a lot. And to me, if it's your own property, you should be able to dig on your own property. But no, if they come across something, if they move up roots or grass or whatever, and they come across some pottery or something like that, then they have to get their archaeological team in and they section it off and they scrape away layer by layer by layer. The buckets of mud and like that they use gets taken and gets put through a sieve, and they sieve the soil and everything like that, you know. And it doesn't matter whether it's a burial site or an archaeological site like that. That is what you're supposed to do. You know what I mean?
100%
You don't have to. Yeah, you don't have to be an expert, a college graduate, a police officer to understand that that's what's supposed to happen. You know, it's just stupid what they've done.
Correct. But wait, it gets better, Alice. Jack 61, do you have a comment?
Just a quick question, and you can probably answer this, Doc. So if let's just say Bushman comes across this clandestine burial site, they think somebody's been buried there or is buried there or something is. He calls it in. He calls it in, reports it to whoever. Shouldn't their immediate call, if they suspect there's a potential for a body, to be the coroner? The coroner comes in, they take over, and then they call in these forensic people that we've got on screen here.
Yep.
I just want to make sure the process are.
Correct. So that is the correct procedure. So the important thing is, and here's the important question, and somebody made the comment about Len Kaczynski's notes about H1 and H2 body measurement. Yeah, that's right. I would love to see those pictures, right? The question is this: what attracted Bushman to this particular site? What alerted him to this being a potential burial site? Now, Bushman would have known when Teresa was reported missing. Bushman would have known that if there's a clandestine burial site, it's a fresh burial site. It hadn't been there for years, right, guys? That's the important distinguishing feature. If it was a burial site involving Teresa Halbach or her personal effects, that gravesite would have been freshly dug. Guys, do you agree? Yes or no? And people in chat, do you agree? If Bushman came across this so-called clandestine burial site, he immediately would have thought, shit, this is a freshly dug grave. Jack 61.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. He had many years experience. He would have known, and he would have known, as you said, about the missing person. And they still hadn't found shit.
Correct. So he wouldn't have been looking for something that was hard as a rock, something that was buried 5-10 years ago. He would have found something, and he was immediately triggered to think, this is a freshly dug grave, and I'll prove it to you that it was. That's why they had to hide what happened at Cuss Road. Now, I don't recall. Do you see slide E3? Do you see it? Or just wait for I don't recall.
Yes, I do.
Are you able to read out what you see here? Now, this is the proper procedure of what you do when you come across a crime scene. I don't recall.
The first task is to record everything as it appears in incredible detail by video, photo, and in written notes. Even items that may first appear innocuous can later take on new significance. This stage is vital. Years later, this may be the only way cold case teams can virtually revisit the scene to identify new clues.
Okay. Now, people, I'm going to go around the panel. I'm going to go around, and people in chat, I want you to answer yes or no. Was this standard operating procedure, i.e. video, photo, and write extensive notes done at Cuss Road and at Stephen Avery's burn pit? Yes or no? Alice?
No, hell no.
No? I don't recall.
No.
Jack 61.
Absolutely not.
Just Rhonda.
Not even a little bit.
Yep. Now, that's not me. This is a guy who investigates crime scenes, especially clandestine burial sites, right? You've got to absolutely document through the use of video, photography, and extensive written notes. We have seen bugger all from the clandestine burial site at Cuss Road and bugger all from Stephen Avery's burn pit that allegedly contained Teresa Halbach's cremains. It is criminal the way we're meant to just swallow the state explanations of two potential crime scenes, i.e., don't ask any questions, we got nothing. But if you think that's bad, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Just Rhonda, do you see that slide? E4.
Yes, I do.
Now, this is how you process a clandestine burial site. Just Rhonda, would you like to read it out?
Outdoor scenes present extra challenges as evidence can be damaged or destroyed by weather, wildlife, and the landscape itself. Clandestine grave sites, however, can help preserve clues underground. It's not easy to find a hidden burial site. Even a freshly dug grave site, if done well, can be difficult to identify in an expansive bush scene. Investigators will be looking for areas where the ground looks disturbed or spots where vegetation has grown unusually lushly caused by the decomposition of a body underneath. Investigators may also deploy cadaver dogs to search for human remains or ground-penetrating radar, which uses radio waves to identify changes in the soil underground.
Right. Now, notice what he said. They're notoriously difficult to detect if done well. Bushman found it. And as I said to you before, and I mean no disrespect, if Teresa Halbach or her personal effects were buried in this clandestine burial site, that grave would have been a maximum of 8 days old. 8 days old. If she's reported missing or no one sees her after October the 31st, this is November the 7th. It meant that that clandestine burial site had to be freshly dug, right? It couldn't have been hard as a rock. It couldn't have been buried years ago. Common sense would have told Bushmen, oh my God, this is a fresh burial site. And I'll prove to you that it was. Just Rhonda, do you have a comment?
I do. I wish that we could show the picture. I put it in the on-air text chat, but there's an aerial view. There's several aerial views actually, but there's the one I put in the chat is an aerial
Yeah.
view of the clandestine burial sites of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow in the Vallow Daybell
Oh,
case. And it's in listening to the testimony over the last couple of weeks, one of the detectives actually commented on how they moved from one, because there were two children, whoever's unfamiliar with the case, two children buried in this area. And
oh,
one of them had attempted to be burned, and then the other one was suffocated or something. But at any
yes.
rate, Tylee, the girl, the 16-year-old girl, they had attempted to. Oh, there it is. Jack's put it up
Oh,
there.
awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, this shows, and in the very beginning, there's other pictures of the beginning of this before they even started digging. And I remember watching that when it came on the news, and all I could think about was if they had done if they had done anything correctly at Stephen Avery's burn pit
Yes.
or anywhere else in in the Avery case, this is what it would have looked like. And there would have been on ground, because there's on ground photos of this as well. But they were painstakingly uh carefully digging with brushes and spoons and little tools that they were using. And the other thing is that one of the detectives mentioned that the round thing that you can see right there, that's the burn pit. I don't know if that's what they call it, but the burn pit. And
Yes.
um, another distance away, there's another site where there was the little boy was buried, and the detective on the stand testified that what drew their attention to that other site was that the landscape on it looked differently. The grass was a
Yes.
little greener or a
Yes.
different color, and it
Yes.
was 9 months after the children were last seen.
Yeah.
Which
Not 8 days.
November.
Not 8 days.
No,
That's a considerable time difference.
right.
Yep.
So yeah,
That.
this is what it should look like.
Yep.
Not a
That's.
human site.
Yep, and
What's that?
that's a fantastic. Thank you so much for bringing that up, just Rhonda. But do you notice the crime scene tape wasn't 120 yards away? The
Right.
crime scene tape was around the periphery of where they found the clandestine burial site. So therefore, no one can walk in, no one can walk out. So you leave a proper trail as you walk into the crime scene area. They've got the tarp on the ground, they've got the buckets, they've got the dirt. And if you notice that the grave doesn't appear to be very deep at all, it's a shallow grave. Looks like a shallow grave.
Yeah.
Jack 61, do you have a comment?
I do, and because in looking and remembering the various reports, and I'm talking about of these places that they dug up. I'm talking about specifically the Avery burn pit. Now I'm talking about Cuss Road, and in nowhere in any of these did they mention anything about odor.
Oh,
And
correct.
I'm wondering now that we're talking about Bushman and his team, if it's 8 days and she's been laying in that ground for several days, if they smelled something, because by this time, even in the cool weather, there's going to be some pretty strong odor, right?
There's human decomposition.
Yeah.
And I had a very interesting discussion with Brother Yuriz. A human body produces methane gas, right?
Yep.
And so that's why using a cadaver dog, you've got to be a little bit careful because potentially they could smell the methane gas and make a mistake. But cadaver dogs are trained not only on methane gas, they're trained on many of the odorants. Remember, we covered it several podcasts ago, putrescine and other cadaverine, other odorants, which a human decomposing body produces. So hence you can prevent a false positive by only smelling methane. But the interesting thing is this, guys, there's a scent dog heading in that direction. And a scent dog doesn't smell methane. A scent dog smells the live scent of Teresa Hallbach.
Right.
Right? So as you can see, what Just Rhonda read out, notice investigators may deploy cadaver dogs. Notice using a cadaver dog to go to a clandestine burial site is a normal procedure. It's not an extraordinary procedure. Just Rhonda, do you have a comment?
I do. I just talking about the odors. So I mentioned that from the time we believe the children were killed was sometime around the middle to end of September. And
Yes.
they didn't discover the children until the following summer in June. And when they were digging, the detectives were testifying on the stand. It was actually gut wrenching to listen to how they could only dig for a minute or so at a time because the odor was so intense and so putrid that they couldn't one person couldn't just stay there for minutes at a time doing it. They had to switch off every couple of minutes so that or less,
Yes.
I believe, because they couldn't even take a breath and this is how many months later, like 9 months later or something like
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
even that much of a distance, and it's gone through winter at this point, and
Yes.
so there had to be some sort of an odor, I would think, at the
Except,
clandestine site.
of course, you're going to have a diminished odor if what was buried there were bones,
True,
cremated
true.
bones. Do you guys agree?
Yes.
Do you guys agree? There would have been less odor if you had partial cremains buried at the clandestine burial site, right? But still, and a very interesting comment was made about Brutus hitting on the shovel. That's true. Brutus did hit on the shovel, but what they did was they removed the shovel and they got it rechecked. Brutus and another cadaver dog did not hit on the shovel. But Brutus went back and gave an alert at the clandestine burial site, because I've read the report. So that sort of hitting on the shovel may have been not 100% accurate, because they removed the shovel and got it retested by, I think, 2 cadaver dogs, and they gave, I believe, head-high alerts, but no barking. But Brutus gave an alert at the clandestine burial site. So therefore, Brutus had smelt human decomposition at the clandestine burial site, which is very, very interesting. Jack 61, did you have a comment? Or all good? All good?
No, all good, Doc. All good.
Okay. So just Rhonda, are you able to read slide E5? So this is basically the processing. This is the basic processing of a clandestine burial site. Just Rhonda, do you see E5?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like to read it, please?
That once a grave is identified, you can't just roughly dig it up. The grave fill must be gradually removed using small brushes and shovels like those used on archaeological dig sites. All removed soil is sifted and searched for tiny pieces of evidence. Even a tiny fiber or hair could connect the grave to a suspect. Even the sidewalls of the grave can offer clues about the type or shape of the shovel used to dig it. Layer by layer, we work down until we reveal the deceased person at the bottom of the grave. Utmost care is taken here, as repatriation of the remains to loved ones is a pivotal part of the process of gaining closure.
Fantastic. Now, we know there's evidence that they dug dirt from the clandestine burial site and they put it on a tarp. You could see it. Remember we showed a few pictures, Jack 61, where you can see the darkened earth, right, in the
That's
shape
right.
of a grave.
That's
So
right.
they definitely dug out a lot of dirt, and we saw that big white sheet and the blue tarp. Now, I'll tell you right now, did the crime scene investigators show respect at Stephen Avery's burn pit in sifting through the cremains, which they said belonged to Teresa Horber? Did they use a grid? Did they use fine brushes? Or did they just scoop it out with shovels and stick it and place it on a sifter? Alice, your comments, please.
Oh, fuck no. They done none of that. They had no respect for Teresa, especially with bringing in a friggin' digger. They brought in a digger and fucking dug it. No shovels and brushes and everything like that. You know
Correct.
what I mean? It's a joke what they done to that pit. It really is a joke what they done.
They used the bobcat and they completely destroyed the burn pit. And there's no evidence. Sorry, Alice.
No, I was just going to say, Doc, I mean, that much so, they had that much respect that the guy that was driving the digger, there's a photo of him smiling and sticking his fucking tongue out. Where is that in respect for Teresa? You know what I mean? A 25-year-old beautiful young woman who's just been brutally murdered by somebody, and they can't be bothered their arses to take the time to grid it off, search it, search by search, get the coroner in, the right pathologist in. No, they go in with their own shovels and everything like that, and then they bring in a digger and think it's funny.
Now you have to admit, there's no way that Stephen Avery's burn pit and the clandestine burial site were given the due diligence those particular sites required, as indicated by standard operating procedures. In both sites, they never called a coroner, and in actual fact, Peterson even threatened Deborah Kakach, "You step foot on the salvage yard, we're going to arrest you." This is their own fellow colleague. There's no evidence of any grid. There's no evidence of any in situ crime scene photographs. All we have is John Erdel's word that they just simply scooped up the ash, they put it through a divider, and they got the bones and they ran the hell out of there. They put a blue tarp on top. They didn't even use floodlights to work throughout the night, and they all disappeared. When they returned, they came with a bobcat. I'm sorry, I mean no disrespect, but that's the most shocking processing of a crime scene that allegedly contained the remains of a 25-year-old woman. Is that the way to process and show respect of two potential crime scenes? One at Cuss, one on Stephen Avery's burn pit, and of course the cremains that were found at the Manitowoc County gravel pit, where we know nothing about. So, excuse me for being skeptical, but I think there's more than just a pallet and a bag of peat moss going on here. Guys, would you agree? There's something a hell of a lot more than just a peat moss bag and a rotten wooden pallet. Alice?
Yeah, definitely, Doc. Definitely. There was way more going on. I mean, even playing devil's advocate for a second, right? Even if it's no Teresa's body or that's been found at Cush Road. Say maybe it was her electronics and stuff like that, her camera and stuff like that.
Correct.
It doesn't matter. It still should have been reported. It still should have been investigated, no matter what, because as what we've just read, that is part of a crime scene. You know, if you've recently found disturbed earth and everything like that, and you're investigating a crime, and that is in the parameters, your 20-mile parameter that you've put out that this crime could have happened in, then you've got to search everything. You know what I mean? You have got to search everything, and you have got to take tips and things like that, even though they could sound silly, and follow up on the ones that you think are credible. So even if her electronics and things like that was found at Cuss Road, it is still an important part, and for guilters and that just to dismiss it, that's
Correct.
wrong. That is so wrong. You know what I mean? Because they wouldn't dismiss it in any other case. If this was any other case, Doc, and something
Yes.
like that had happened in that case, they'd be shouting about, oh, well, wait a minute. Well, what about that? Why were all these people there, but they're no there, And I think that's got a lot to do with it as well. If you can't just dismiss something like that when it could be a big part of the investigation. Like I says, her electronics and that could have been found there, and that was how the police and that got their hands on them, and that was how they could allegedly plant them on Stephen's property in one of the burn barrels.
Correct, 100% correct. To me, if you have a look at this in a logical manner, the state kept Cuss Road and the Stephen Avery burn pit in-house. They didn't want any investigation or information out about both sites. And people in chat are correct. You find one bone, you find any evidence of a human being being buried, it's tools down. You call the coroner, you call a forensic anthropologist, and you hand the case over to them. And Deborah Kakach at that time had the power to arrest the sheriff. The sheriff knew this, and it's disgusting. And now I understand how John Erdl must have felt. It's disgusting that you, as the state's coroner, find out about the bones on the Avery salvage yard in Stephen Avery's burn pit on the television. And her own colleagues phoned her up and said, "Hey, boss, are we going down there? Yes or no?" That's not professional, guys. That's shocking. Jack 61.
And you can tell this is par for the course because what happens on November 9th. Lieutenant Kelly Sipple calls into Captain Rush at Queso, says, "Hey, boss,
Yes.
I got 2 5-gallon buckets of bones out here." He doesn't ask for the coroner. Captain Rush damn well knows that they should be calling the coroner. He wants 40 to 60 more people to come out there to help them scour the quarry and pick bones up.
That's correct.
So this is what they do. This is part of the course for these people.
Yep. And it's true, guys, in chat. No forensic anthropologist or the state coroner ever set foot on the Avery salvage yard or at Cuss Road. And that's completely shocking. I mean, what was their rush? If they found the clandestine burial site, let's process it properly. If they found human bones in Stephen Avery's burn pit, let's process it properly. Those bones weren't going to go anywhere, right? But that you could tell that there was a sense of urgency to get Stephen arrested ASAP. And that's why they arrested Stephen on November the 9th, not for the murder of Teresa Hobart, but for a gun charge. They needed to put Stephen under watch and in prison ASAP. Jack 61.
I got one more little dig for convicting because hopefully they can explain.
Was that a Freudian slip there? Dig?
It was actually. I got one more little dig for convicting. Can they explain to us and the rest of the community why on November 9th, when SIP gets this call, that he doesn't call a coroner in? They bring the coroner down there the next day. Hell, it was a done deal. They went all over the damn place picking stuff up. It was too late.
They had Kratz answer that question.
I'm sorry, what's that, Sheree?
I said they had Kratz answer that question.
Oh, the coroner's there. The coroner's only there to kick the body.
To kick the body, correct, 100% correct. All right. So, yeah, there are plenty of questions about the clandestine burial site. That is for sure. But another very important question was raised in last week's podcast. And again, this is very, very relevant. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? And the question was raised, oh, come on. Are you trying to tell me that the cadaver dogs checked all the cars in the Avery salvage yard? Come on, that can't be possible, right? Jack 61, do you see slide F?
Absolutely.
Yeah, would you like to read it out? Now, this is from Julie Kramer's report on November the 5th. This is what happened on November the 5th. Jack 61.
At this time, 4 teams, K9 Lucy, K9 Trace, K9 Riesling, and K9 Cody, were sent to begin checking vehicles in the salvage yard. During this search, the 4 dog teams used the existing roads through the salvage yard to create grid patterns and did a specific vehicle checks of each vehicle in their areas. 2 teams reported an alert in the same area. Both K9 Lucy and K9 Trace alerted in an area of the salvage yard along the gravel conveyor in the southwestern section of the yard. Alert number 3. This area was north of the area alert number 2. While both dogs alerted, no scent source was located at this time.
Thank you so much. So quite clearly, our team of 4 dogs checked every car in the Avery salvage yard on November the 5th, and there were some alerts. Now, remember, each one of those dogs had a deputy with the dog handler. So the deputy that went along obviously was writing and taking notes of what the cadaver dogs found. They found some hits, they noted blood in the vehicles, and then later the crime lab went down to process what was found. So quite clearly, the dogs definitely checked out all the cars at the salvage yard, and they got a couple of hits, but they found no scent source, which meant they didn't find any body, no body parts, nothing. Now you're probably going, how on earth can 4 dogs check the salvage yard? Jack 61, can we have the next slide, please? Right? So what is interesting here is that, hey, the cadaver dogs had nothing on Pam of God, right? Nothing. If you thought the cadaver dogs were good, forget it. Pam Sturm and her daughter were much better than any cadaver dog, right? So if you have a look at the picture, on the right-hand side showing the Avery salvage yard. Now, think about it. You come into this place where you have never been before. You are confronted with a 40-acre plot. You're confronted with over 3,000 vehicles, right? And are you trying to tell me that Pam of God and Nicole, in approximately 20 minutes, was able to walk straight to Teresa's RAV4 with over 3,000 vehicles present in the yard? Alice, do we need to put up the warning? Alice.
Well, wait.
Hey, Doc, just for clarity,
Yes.
there was actually closer to 4,000. It's 3,800, and I don't remember the exact number. Over 3,800.
Okay. Yep. You can. That picture there is, I'm not sure whether it was November the 5th, 6th, or the 7th. But remember, there was McConnell in the helicopter taking the pictures for measurement purposes. So that is an in situ picture. That's how the Avery salvage yard looked when Pam of God went there. Alice. Thank you, Jack 61.
What a load of fucking bollocks, Doc. There is no way in fucking hell did she just come across that car. No way all the cars being there. She was told where that fucking car was. Because if I remember right, thank you, Jack, because I'm really, really it angers me. It angers me so much when I see this and I see these pictures. because there is no way that they've just walked down that dirt road, searched the first cars, and then all of a sudden, God has put a fucking sunshine beam light down with a big
Yes.
fucking halo sign saying,
Yes.
I'm over here. And she's went, oh, I'm over here. And then goes and finds that car. No fucking way in hell did that
Right.
happen. She knew exactly where she was going. She was the
Yep.
only one that was given a camera. She was the only one that was given a fucking map. And people have got to remember these facts. It might be small, but it's fucking fact. She was the only one that was given a map. She was the only one that was given a camera. And she was the only one that was given a fucking direct phone number to
Pagel.
Pagel. You
Correct.
know, and I mean, look at the cars that are up on that berm. If Jack was to zoom back into there, even just on that berm, you know what I mean? There is no way that they found that car as quick as they did by saying that they searched that salvage yard. No way, Doc. And I'm sorry, it just makes me
No, not at all.
so angry when I
Not at
see
all.
these pictures and everything like that, because these people have ruined that fucking family's life. Because if you go and you look at that at the salvage yard today,
It's
it
empty. Empty.
full. It is empty. It is, you know what I mean? It is disgusting looking at these photos and how that business was running and everything like that, to now go back and look at the photographs. You know, there is no way. Oh,
Yep.
I need to mute, Doc, because I'll just go on and on.
Well, the important thing, Alice, is that we're not making anything up. We are showing you the in situ pictures. We are showing you testimony. We are showing you official documents. This
Yeah.
This is equivalent of you going inside one of those superstore gardening places that's got about 40 or 50 different rows and thousands of items. This is equivalent of you going into one of those stores blindfolded and walking directly up to the product that you want to purchase and say, oh my God, God showed me the way. I found the pack of screws that I wanted for my project. In a place you have never been before, in a place that you're not familiar with at all, and you just happen to find the victim's vehicle in under 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, wait for it. Wait for Alice. I went back and I read the pre-trial where Pam Stern was in it. Can you believe that she said that she and her daughter checked 50 vehicles before finding the RAV?
Bullshit.
50 vehicles. How on earth can you check 50 vehicles before you find the RAV and you do it all under 20 minutes? I'm telling you right now, the investigators made a mistake. They made a mistake by calling in the cadaver and the scent dogs. All they had to do was call Pam of God and her daughter. They would have found everything. They would have found everything. The key, the plates, you name it. Why did they call the dogs? Pam of God did something that not even the cadaver dogs could do. The cadaver dogs took an hour and a half to search all those cars. Pam of God did it in under 20 minutes. Jack 61.
Yeah, you know, you think about, I mean, just look at the distance, and you know, he's probably 500 to 700 feet above. I think the lowest he could fly legally was 500 feet. I'm
Yes.
talking about Trooper McConnell, and so
Yes.
and I think he flew from 500 to 800 feet is what he reported, something like that. And you look at, you know, let me get back over here. If you see my cursor, you know, where they come back, you come into the Avery salvage yard up here in the upper right, and then they parked, and then they had to walk all the way down all the way down.
Was.
Absolutely. And, you know, they might have walked by 50 cars, but check 50 cars? Bullshit.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
absolute crap.
Correct.
Oh,
correct.
There was one more thing I wanted to add to this, and I'll just
Yes, sir.
just
Please go ahead.
briefly. If people haven't read the backstory of Pam's statement about how she got involved in this to begin with, you need to read it. You need to read it. And you also, to me, you got to read the interaction of what she talked about with Ryan and Scott. I don't. I'm not saying they did shit or anything, but I have my suspicions. But it is really strange to me, even today, knowing what we know, that they got there late. The other searchers were already gone. Ryan and Scott both knew that Teresa had an appointment here, yet Ryan had not assigned anyone to go down there, according to what they said. I don't believe it. I believe the 5 kittens had been assigned, and they left that part out because they got caught. Remember, about 12:30, MTSO caught
Yeah.
them on the yard. I think he had
Yes.
already assigned those people there. Didn't say anything, but this whole story with Ryan and Pam and the camera and just exactly what Al's talked about, to me, it's complete bullshit. Sorry, it is.
But not only that, Jack 61. She almost started to laugh with glee. Remember when she was speaking to either Wiegert or Pagel?
Yep.
Oh, you've got to tell me. You got to tell me.
Yep.
And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. You just found your cousin's vehicle. There's no sign of your cousin because she's related to Teresa Horbach. And you're almost like a little puppy dog saying, oh, you got to tell me. I'm thinking to myself, this is one of the most surreal moments I've ever encountered. Think about this, right, Jack 61. She goes to Pagel. Oh, but it's kind of blue. She was looking for a dark green Rav.
That's right.
And she came across a blue one. Right? So obviously somebody forgot to tell her the narrative, Jack 61.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. It's just, I don't know. The whole thing seemed, I'm not thinking of the right word, but like another one of these cobbled together stories to make it work, to justify, to sell it, but it's not the real truth. That's how it comes across to me. And I add that in because of her testimony and how god awful it was. It was terrible. Her testimony was awful.
She's an actress.
Yeah.
She came across as an actress
Yeah.
reading a bad script. But Jack 61, if we can go to the next slide, this will make what Pam of God did go beyond miraculous, right? Beyond miraculous. This is called the Pope time. Now, this is an aerial 3D view of all the roads and rows that Pam of God could have taken. See all those dark spots, Jack 61? They are all the rows between the cars. And Pam of God could have taken any one of those roads and spent hours checking every vehicle. Now, if you're a cadaver dog, what they did was they put the Avery salvage yard in grids. So the dogs went with their handler and the deputies, and they subdivided the salvage yard, and the dogs checked all the cars. Easy, but it took them an hour and a half to do. Jack 61, Pam of God, did it in under 20 minutes and walked directly to the RAV4. She could have taken any one of those dark roads and got completely lost. But she walked directly to the vehicle. Jack 61.
She's in the wrong business, Doc. That's all I got to say.
Correct. I'm telling you right now, she can outdo any cadaver dog or scent dog. No problems at all. So to answer the question, did all the dogs check all the vehicles in the Avery salvage yard on November the 5th? Yes, they did. Now, Jack 61, can we have the next slide? This is going to crystallize everything together beautifully. Now, just Rhonda, do you see slide I?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to read it? This is Kratz, I think in his closing statement in Stephen Avery's trial. Pay close attention to what the role of an investigator is. Just Rhonda.
Now, again, we're looking for Teresa's body, hopefully alive, but if not, it is important to find if she's on that property. Stephen Avery's garage is searched, other residences, all of the other buildings on the residence are searched. the salvage business itself. But the 4,000 vehicles in what you will hear was a torrential downpour were also examined for the first time on the evening of the 5th. Now, law enforcement officers were involved in that, but Brutus's friends were also involved in that. Other canines, the rest of the team, the other search and rescue animals, the canines were taken in a downpour in the pitch. In the pitch dark, out on a 40-acre property, and every one of these cars was encircled by one of those dogs trying to find Teresa Halbach.
Boom,
Please recall, huh?
boom. Do you see that?
Yeah,
Every one of those
every one.
cars was searched, and that's
Encircled.
straight coming from the special prosecutor. Sorry, just Rhonda.
No, it's okay. Yeah, that's a little telling. Please recall, at this early stage, the police don't know what they're looking for yet. They don't really have an idea yet of the kinds of things that they are looking for. So when you remember this search plan, you will hear evidence, and some officers may even call it the funnel approach. Nothing fancy about calling it the funnel approach. It makes sense. It's a way to describe search efforts. It is actually an interviewing technique as well, but it's a way to find evidence in a funnel type of approach. We're looking for the body first. Then we're looking for obvious signs of evidence.
So there you go. The special prosecutor highlighted what an investigator does. They search for Teresa's body first. Then, if there's any sign of her body or body parts, then you start looking for forensic evidence. Jack 61. Thank you, Just Rhonda, for reading that.
Yeah, that was awesome. And he clearly said every car on that property was searched by the dogs. They were checked.
100% correct. So, guys, can you see what we've just proven? We went to Julie Kramer's report. She wrote down exactly what the cadaver dogs did. We now went to the official trial testimony, and Kratz spelled it out. Every car was checked on November the 5th, right? So there's no doubt. And Mr. Kratz even spelled it out. We're looking for Teresa Halbach. We're looking for her body. Anything else is secondary. Right, guys? Right? Everything else is secondary. If you find evidence of her body, then you start looking for evidence.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Alice.
Yep, that's so true, Doc. Travis in chat says, so my recollection is that when Casey filed her motion for testing of bones from Manitowoc Quarry, they were from 3 areas in the quarry marked by GPS coordinates by State Trooper Austin.
That's correct. There were 3 I think there were burn piles where in Dr. Eisenberg's report, she documented every bone that was found, and she found cut, burnt human bones in those bone piles in the Manitowoc County gravel pit. And Mr. Kratz said, I'm spending no more than 20 seconds talking about these cremains. They're not relevant. They're not part of the case. Jack 61.
I'll have to ask this because I've referenced it twice in today's podcast. Remember the call from Lieutenant Kelly Siffel, and they've already got 2 5-gallon buckets of bones? I'm just wondering,
Yes.
without knowing anything, because his reports were so terrible, were those bones examined and were they GPS documented? I don't think they were. I don't know, is what I'm saying. Does anyone know?
Don't know. I don't know. But here's the kicker. And this is a very important point. Dr. Eisenberg examined all the cremains, all of them. Her conclusion was there were no duplicate bones, and all the cremains had come from one person, an adult female. So you've got this really interesting situation, and Jack 61 spelled it out perfectly. How on earth can you have cremains in Stephen Avery's burn pit in Yunderburn Barrel number 2, and in the Manitowoc County gravel pit, all coming from Teresa Horbach, because the Dr. Eisenberg said, yeah, I checked all the bones. I found no duplicate bones. They all come from one person. 60% of her skeletal remains are missing, which means what the hell did they find at Cuss Road? Right? Because Dr. Eisenberg never mentions cremains from Cuss Road. So something weird is happening here. How on earth can Teresa's cremains be spread over a huge area, and what, by Stephen? By Brendan? Alice, do you have a comment? Alice?
Trigger warning has joined us in chat.
Welcome.
They're just curious. Do any of us know how the documentarians, I think she's meaning Laura and Moira, actually came across this case?
Yeah, I read it somewhere.
It was a newspaper article in the New York Times or one of the newspapers in New York. That's how they heard about it.
Because they joined in fairly early. I don't recall.
I just was saying that it was the Times, New York Times article about Stephen. Right,
correct. And, at the end of the day, it's a very, very topical issue because of what happened to Stephen in 1985, his exoneration in 2003, and now pinning a murder on him. Of course, that's a very interesting story, and they got onto it very, very early on. Alice, do you have a comment?
No, sorry, Doc. I thought I'd...
Okay, so if we have a look at the next slide, because there were a lot of comments, and I asked the question, you bring in the very best cadaver dog, Brutus, that's got an impeccable record. I think he's done over 6,000 hours on the job work. Got a very, very high hit rate, a very low negative rate, as in false positives and false negatives. Brutus checked the crusher, and he also checked all the crushed vehicles. Brutus did not give an alert, which meant that Brutus cleared this area. Guys, are we all okay? Brutus checked all the area with Kramer and probably a deputy, found no evidence of a human decomposition in any of those vehicles. How then do you account, when you're tight for resources, do you account for bringing in 8 fire brigade people with cutting equipment and they cut open all of those crushed vehicles when the best cadaver dog basically said, sorry boys, there's no human decomposition anywhere here? Jack 61.
They didn't trust the dogs. Didn't trust the process of it.
100% correct.
Yep.
100% correct. The investigators brought in the best of the best and did not trust their findings. And this is completely mind-blowing. Why bring in cadaver? Why bring in scent dogs if you basically do not trust their findings, right? And Brutus went through the crusher, went through all the crushed vehicles and cleared it. You know that Brutus is correct because Brutus hit upon the RAV4 twice. So you know that Brutus can detect human decomposition. You know that Brutus can because Brutus detected human decomposition in Stephen Avery's trailer. Right? So you know the dog is accurate. So why then waste all this time, energy and effort? And the news crews were there filming it from above. If you were watching that, you would have been horrified thinking, oh my God, did they crush Teresa Horbach in a car? Right? So the argument was, oh, maybe they were looking for keys. How can you find keys before you find Teresa Horbach's body? And Ken Kratz spelt it out. the investigators find her body first, then look for evidence. You don't do it the reverse, Jack 61.
Just another thought, and this is maybe a little far out there for people to believe, but I know that it's done. Maybe Deputy Inspector Shetter was told, "Hey, you need to get these firemen out there to start cutting cars open. We got a helicopter, a news helicopter up there. They can film it.
Yep.
It's going to look really shitty for Stephen."
Correct. And that's exactly what the November 2nd, March 2nd press conference did for Stephen and Brendan. The same bloody thing. People hearing that thinking, oh my God, these guys are worse than Hannibal Lecter.
Absolutely.
If you see that news footage of the helicopter taking pictures of the firemen and also the divers going into the ponds, you're thinking bad thoughts. Correct, guys? Yes or no? You're thinking bad thoughts.
Of course. I mean, they're out there doing all. Surely the police wouldn't bring all these people out here to just do this work for nothing, right?
Correct.
Well,
Correct.
Of course they will.
So
especially if they got a bone to pick with Avery.
Correct. So they're finding stuff. And the reality was, did they find anything in any of those crushed vehicles, including the crusher? Answer, no. Did they find anything in any of the ponds, either on the property or surrounding the property? Answer is no. And as Alice said, a cadaver dog can smell a body in water because the body emits gases, right? Josh Radon had to empty 2 of his silk ponds so that they could check it, right? All for nothing. So what I'm saying is, yes, as an investigator, your job is to find Teresa Horbach. That's why you use the cadaver and scent dogs to point you in the right direction, right? What did Tom Fassbender say, Jack 61? Wherever the dogs gave alert, we put resources there. Except at Cuss Road, they were there before the dogs got there, right, Jack 61? So they did everything in reverse.
Well, I mean, you and I both, we can't prove it obviously, but you and I both have a sneaking suspicion that Bushman had his dog with him.
Yes, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, okay.
Now, guys, this really got my gears ground. And if we have a look at the next slide. Now, we absolutely know that Brutus gave an alert, in actual fact, twice on the RAV4. Brutus did not stick his head under a tarp, because if you read Julie Kramer's testimony in the trial, the tarp had already been taken off, right? So the dog hit at the back of the RAV4, right? The dog didn't stick its head under the tarp. The tarp had already been removed or partially removed, because Julie Kramer said, no, there was no tarp covering the car. So Brutus had hit twice on the car, the back of the car. Now, believe it or not, Brutus wanted to go inside the car. They never let Brutus anywhere near the inside of the vehicle. In actual fact, they never opened up the RAV4. Now, a lot of people may comment, oh, look, come on. You can't process the RAV4 there. You got to take it to the crime lab, blah, blah, blah. But if you have a look at this picture here, right? That's Tom Fassbender right next to the RAV4. And as you can see, they did a really good job by putting, I think there were 2 tarps underneath, on top of the RAV4. And everyone who was there, Jack 61, said one thing. We made sure that the RAV4 was protected, that the tarps didn't touch the RAV4. And they said, why? Because we wanted to preserve forensic evidence, right? They wanted to preserve forensic evidence. So there's no doubt, guys, that the RAV4 was the quintessential crime scene piece of evidence that needed to be preserved at all costs. Yet, people in the panel and in chat, yes or no? This is your crime scene. This is worth preserving at all costs. Alice, do you agree? Yes or no? In chat, tell us, do you believe it's worth preserving? Alice?
Yes, of course it is, Doc. Of course it is. That is where they're supposedly saying that she's, that it's her car. So
Yep.
how did the car get there? Was she hurt in the car? Was she hurt outside the car? It's everything should have been tested, secured. Yellow tape should have been all the way round that. Nobody allowed in it. No tarp. I mean, was that a brand new tarp that was opened up?
Yes, they were new
Yeah,
tarps.
they were new.
They were brand new tarps.
You know what I mean? So, but even at that, they put the tarp on, and then when it rains, they take it off. So there goes
Yep.
evidence.
Well,
You
don't
know?
worry. Don't worry. I'll show that. I'll show that. But you agree? You need to preserve this piece of crime scene evidence. This is crucial, right?
Definitely.
This is going to show. This is the Rosetta Stone to the entire case. I don't recall. You have to be preserved. Yes or no?
Yes, definitely.
Yep. Jack 61. Preserve.
Absolutely.
Yes or no?
Absolutely.
And just Rhonda. Preserve. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, so really, all they had to do was put one more tarp on the white car. One more tarp, or maybe two maximum, and they've got the whole RAV4 protected from the elements completely. Because people go camping with tarps, and they can withstand monsoon rain, doesn't penetrate. So if they use duct tape and one more tarp, they would have produced an outdoor, almost like an outdoor processing lab right there in situ. All they had to do then was call in the crime lab with a camera, set up a light or lights, and they had lights, right, Jack 61? We know they had lights. Put lights in there and start processing the vehicle then and there, under the tarps, under the protection of the elements, right? Only allow the crime lab in with a camera, with their forensic equipment, start taking swabs and start looking for fingerprints and for the presence of blood, tissue, hair, anywhere around the RAV4. Open the RAV4. Open the RAV4 and take pictures. Have a look. What do you see? Is there a blunt and bloody object? Jack 61, right? A blunt and bloody object. Does opening up the RAV give you clues as to where Teresa Hallbark is and what happened to her? And what you'll note is if they opened up that RAV then and there, was there blood at the front? Was there sign of a struggle? Was there a murder object? Was there blood in the back? Start swabbing. Take swabs. Once you've done your processing, close it up and put crime scene tape everywhere. This is a no-touch zone, but you've processed the vehicle in situ without anybody touching it. Now, is that reasonable or unreasonable? What do you think, guys? And even in chat, is it reasonable to do that? Jack 61.
They absolutely should have done it, because by not doing it, now they've called themselves into question. Because even when they got it back to the crime lab, they didn't document shit. They didn't document anything, at least from what we've seen. If there are photos and video available, they've kept it hidden. We have nothing.
Correct. Imagine, and people have already commented, A23. Imagine if they took a robust swab of A23, if they took prints, if they took swabs of the door handles, because somebody had to get in, somebody had to get out. Imagine if they opened up the hood and say, okay, is there anything here? Let's swab the hood. Let's have a look at the battery. Let's swab underneath. Let's take some crime scene pictures. Because remember, Errol always travels with his photographer. then and there, right? Now, by not processing the RAV4, and remember, Pam of God found it at about 10:30. They didn't move the RAV till after 9 o'clock. But guys, have a look at the next picture. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next picture? So instead of preserving crucial forensic evidence, Tom Fassbender removed the tarp in a torrential downpour. Jack 61, if you could zoom in, the entire RAV4 is wet. It's been rained upon. Right? They've lost or contaminated crucial forensic evidence on that RAV. And have a look at the Rambler hood. It's soaked. So, hey, whoever put that up there must have left their prints, must have left their touch DNA. Lo and behold, it all got washed away. Right? Now, guys, is that insane or what? So, by allowing rain to fall on the RAV, you have lost blood, potentially lost blood, touch DNA, hair, fibers, and fingerprints, all in one hit. And this was the decision of the co-lead investigator to remove the tarp. And the RAV4, and you have a look at the back tire, the cover, the entire RAV4 got soaked in rain. Now, I'm sorry guys, but they had an opportunity to process the bloody thing then and there, undercover. No one coming in, no one coming out. What do? Tom Fassbender removes the cover in a torrential downpour. Jack 61, do you have a comment? Does anyone have a comment about that?
Well, I've got several because there's a bunch of stories that Brendan told about the RAV and the placing and all this shit that was piled up on it. And you talked about that Rambler hood, and one of the stories that Brendan told was that him and Avery picked it up and they carried it over there together, but it was never tested for. It was never dusted, as far as I know, for prints.
No. And when Jack 61, when John Erdl went around, he said, I found no evidence of any forensic evidence, right? Now, the state is saying that Stephen Avery was actively bleeding. Don't you think it would have been a good idea to bring a cadaver dog, maybe even a scent dog, to check all around the vehicle in case there were droplets of blood on the ground? Jack 61.
And a different light source as well, not just a bright
Correct.
spotlight from a searchlight or prop light, whatever.
Correct. So use an alternative light source, right? That is the victim's vehicle then and there. And everyone that checked inside the vehicle with a light, what did they say, Jack 61, about seeing blood? Did any investigator see blood, including Pam of God and Nicole?
No. The only thing that I can remember, I think it was Jost that said that he saw the SD card laying in the back of the cargo area with Teresa's name on it.
With a name on it. And no one mentioned seeing any blood.
No.
And yet a cadaver dog, Brutus, gave 2 hits. Now the question is, what did Brutus pick up? A23? Something else? And look, guys, I'm not kidding, but all that forensic evidence just got washed away, right? But miraculously, on the inside, you have 6 droplets and flakes of Stephen Avery's blood and Teresa's blood. And that's it. So, boom, there goes Stephen Avery right then and there. Jack 61.
Yeah, it's hard to say because, we've all been witness to a torrential rain. I know I have, and it's hard to say what got washed off of that RAV. And I don't know. I mean, the RAV to me, it is the piece of evidence that Gazeller needs, and M-back the hell out of it. M-back the fuck out of that thing.
M-vac it, no question about it. And we did a presentation on the M-vacking, right? the state do not want to give a Kathleen Zellner that RAV4 or the license plates or the blinker light, right? So something really weird is happening here. Now, to make matters worse, this is what Ken Kratz wrote about this incident in his book, right? So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? And Alice, do you see slide N? Do you see slide N?
Yep, I do, Doc.
Would you like to read it, please? This is Mr. Kratz in his book talking about what happened to the RAV. Alice, after you.
A major storm was rolling in, and an enclosed trailer was on the way to transport Teresa's SUV to the crime lab in Madison, where it could be processed away from the elements. Tom ordered an officer to place a tarp over the SUV in case rain hit before the trailer arrived. He wanted to prevent any evidence present on the outside of the vehicle, such as fingerprints and DNA, from being washed away. And so the tarp was secured over the RAV4 until the winds picked up. Now, fearing the shifting tarp might itself disturb the branches and other debris atop the car, Fassbender had the tarp removed. Of course, it was then, as Murphy's Law dictates, that it began to rain sheets of the stuff. Despite Tom's unflinching decisiveness, things had gone to shit quickly. Meanwhile, sniffer dogs set to work, including Brutus, a well-behaved Belgian shepherd, part of the Great Lakes Search and Rescue Canine Group. Brutus was a cadaver dog, trained to detect the scent of human remains, more particularly decomposition, blood, bone, and tissue. When alive, each person in the world has their own unique odour and live scent. Search dogs are typically given an article of missing person's clothing to smell. Cadaver dogs, in contrast, do not need clothing or anything else to complete their task because they specialise in the smell we all share after death, the unmistakable aroma of decay. After scuffling to and fro, Brutus alerted on Teresa's RAV4. In that moment, our missing person case became a likely homicide, and everyone at the scene knew it.
Right.
Bullshit.
Yep. So even though a cadaver dog smells human decomposition, a cadaver dog is not specific for Teresa Hallbach. They had no idea whose blood or human decomposition was in that RAV4. And these guys are already making the leap that Teresa must be dead. She must be dead. They found no evidence of her body anywhere near on the Avery salvage yard, and yet they're declaring this a homicide already, right? And it's very interesting that, and somebody made the comment in chat, not only did they remove the tarps, they had to wait for the wrecking crew to arrive, so that car got a free car wash as torrential rain poured. Now, you trying to tell me that Tom Fassbender can't simply look up above his head and see the dark clouds rolling in, not phone in and get a weather report to say there's going to be a major storm? Why was there a rush to remove the tarp when all they had to do was put on another tarp to protect it? When the rain had finished, when it had finished raining, then and only then do you move the vehicle. Jack 61.
And even after, as Kratz described in his book here, even after Brutus gave the hit, they still didn't open that fucking car.
Correct. Correct. They actually removed Brutus and Julie Kramer from the scene and told the dog to go away. The dog wanted to go inside. Yes, there's always the danger of contamination, but why not open up a door? Why not keep Brutus on a tight leash to say, right, what do you find? Where are you hitting? The front, the back? Is there anything there? Is there a blunt and bloody object? Get some clues, guys. But no, they take off the tarp, it rains, they lose potential very good forensic evidence, and then Kratz goes, oh yeah, things had gone to shit. I'm sorry, but it was under the control of the co-lead investigator, Tom Fassbender, that made that decision. Jack 61.
And this is, one of our big problems with the case. It's another incident with law enforcement, and the decision they made. It's like they wanted to keep their arms so tightly wound around this thing. Was it nefarious? That's always the question comes up. I get from guilt was that nefarious? Well, I don't know if it was or not. All I know is what I see, because according to them, it was locked and remains closed until they get up into Madison. And miraculously, the next morning when Groffy comes in, the driver's side door's open,
It's
unlocked.
open.
Yeah, he doesn't know, whatever. And there's a bunch of this really strange shit that goes on. He's a photographer. He's supposed to take photographs of everything before it's touched.
And he does. And guess what he does?
He takes a blood sample, but he's ordered to take
a blood sample. He does a presumptive test. He does a presumptive test. Correct. So, and I'm
sorry, Michael, I'll finish. What I'm saying is that it creates this event that we can't really answer. We have no answers, and they're not given anything, and we don't have. Well, they could have done any. I mean, in my opinion, because I don't trust them, they could have done anything, and I think they did.
Correct. And trigger warning makes the important point, or makes the important comment. Blood was placed later, and guys, without a camera, without a video, without opening the doors at the salvage site, and with no one observing any blood anywhere, including the trained investigator, Pam of God, trigger warning is very likely 100% correct. You had the blood later, right? Yes, it was fresh blood. It wasn't EDTA blood, but it does look very, very suspicious. Why not bring in a video camera and video camera the entire RAV4? Walk around it. Walk around it. What do you see? If there's any blatant forensic evidence like blood, tissue, a handprint, a fingerprint, process it then and there. You've got nothing to lose, because what you do is you do it in situ. Now, this is an incredible segue to the next two slides, and now it makes perfect sense. Now, we know that John Erdl was everywhere, including where the RAV4 was. Now, Jack 61, are you able to get the next slide? This is very, very interesting. Jack 61, can you read this slide out? This is an email from Fassbender to John Erdl. Jack 61.
Yep, and be sure to note the date. This is June 30th, 2006. So here we are months later. All right.
Mm-hmm.
John, when you processed the vehicle that was found to contain the license plate of Hallbox RAV4, did you take any photos of the inside of said vehicle? The DA has photos of the outside and surrounding area. According to records, you turned over the license plate to Calumet County. If you know, did you package them prior to turning them over? Also, just confirming that you did not take any photos of the burn pit behind the garage where Hallbox bones were found. Why were there no photos taken? Thomas, no eyebrows, J. Fassbender.
Yeah, now have a look at the response now it makes perfect sense. Have a look at the response. Jack 61, would you like to continue reading?
Absolutely.
This is John Erdl to Fassbender, and notice he CC'd in his two work buddies, Zhang and Cates. Have a listen to what Erdl wrote.
Yeah, this
Jack
is
61.
This is like 3 days later, July 3rd. So, Tom, I checked the contact prints of the photos we took at the scene, and you're correct. There are none of the inside of the license plate vehicle and none of the burn pit. The reasoning is the same in both instances. We typically do not take photos to document a scene if the scene has knowingly been altered.
Altered.
Yep. In regards to the license plate, the firemen had reportedly unrolled at least one of the plates, and they had been moved from their original positions. In regards to the burn pit, our involvement began with a request to use our sifting equipment. The scene had obviously been altered at that point. Had we been working any of these scenes from the start to finish, there would likely have been a more thorough photo record. However, under the circumstances, we were merely able to provide technical assistance rather than the complete scene processing. Any evidence that we collected, including the license plate, were packaged by us and inventoried and sealed by Calumet County. John Erdl.
Now, you want to put up the warning sign for harsh language?
I'm going to, yes.
I now understand John Erdl. John Erdl was not in the loop. John Erdl and his crew were called always after the fact. They were called last to Stephen Avery's trailer to check out the trailer. They were called last to Cuss Road, not at the beginning, right? And they were called last to go to the RAV4. And they were called last at other locations, including Stephen Avery's burn pit. To me, I could be wrong. I like to see what everyone on the panel says and in chat. This was a fuck you to Tom Fassbender for treating me like shit and my team like shit. This was a fuck you, Tom Fassbender. You want me to take all your crime scene photographs when you treated my team like trash, and you call people like Lenk, Colburn, and Tyson to Cuss Road before me, and you allow Remica, Lenk, and Colburn in Stephen Avery's trailer before calling me, and you call all these people to the RAV4 before calling us. Fuck you. Now, I could be wrong, I could be harsh, but to me, hey, I've been a professional and I know this is a thinly veiled disguise to say to Tom, fuck you. You reckon I'm going to take all these crime scene photos? And Jack 61 read a very important point, and that is we don't document a scene when we know it's been altered. Now, this is crucial because everyone that was at Stephen Avery's burn pit was asked, did you move anything? Did you add anything? Did you change anything? Everyone said, no, we never touched a thing. How on earth can John Erdl come across the burn pit and say it had obviously been altered? Jack 61. Jack 61.
Well, again, what you're saying, how you described it, and everything that we know, again, we have to take a little bit of a leap, but it is a informed leap, and I can't disagree with what you're saying. I can't. He probably was saying, you know what, screw you guys. You screwed us the entire time that we were there, at every turn.
Yep. And John Erdl his crew was always second to everything.
That's
now,
right.
You know that the right protocol, and Alice read it out. If you come across a clandestine burial site, if you come across a burial, the burn pit, and you see some bones, tools down, boys. You call the coroner, you call the crime lab. Get the hell out of there. Process it properly. Take all the photographs. That's it. Beautiful documentation. What we don't have is any form of proper documentation of anything. Yet there are thousands of photographs, hundreds of items of evidence that have got nothing to do with the case at all. Jack 61.
Yeah, there's still a lot of photographs that we still can't get. They deny it. Some of the really silly excuses, especially from Uyghur as well. Can you describe what's in these photographs? Well, motherfucker, if I knew what was in the photographs, I probably wouldn't need them. No, we've never seen them. That's why that's why it's being requested. And he always denies it based on, well, blah, 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 legal, blah, blah, blah. So, we've got the new guy that's taking over. I think it's time to write more open records requests and try to get these photographs stocked. I'm going to try. I've been
Yes.
I've been debating it, but I think it's time to try again.
Yes. Fantastic. Alice, do you have a comment? Thank you, Jack61. Alice, do you have a comment?
No, it's Behind the Magic. Behind the Magic's joined us in chat. Hi, Behind the Magic. She says, what does it mean, at least one of the plates?
Well, two number plates were found in a station wagon with a broken window. And believe it or not, cadaver dogs checked it. No hit on that particular vehicle, right? One of the firemen picked up one of the number plates and unrolled it. Right? Opened up the number plates. So instead of the crime lab getting down there going, hey, we better check for prints, we better take any photographs, the number plates were handled by a third party. So if you're the crime lab, you must be feeling very, very frustrated because you can't actually process the forensic evidence properly, right? So there were two number plates, and as Erdl said, one of the firemen had actually unrolled one of the number plates. The cadaver dogs didn't hit. I don't even think the scent dogs went down that way. The scent dogs' loof went away off the property to where Cuss Road was. So there's something not right there, right? All right. So I reckon, guys, we've actually done quite a bit. How long have we been going for, Jack61? And don't worry, Andy B, we won't go. How long have we been going?
We've been going 2 hours and 21 minutes.
Fantastic. All right, let's continue. So now, if we have a look at the next slide, Jack61, it's 20D. See if you can find it, 20D. So as you can see,
Doc, it's gonna take me about 15 seconds to swap out here.
No worries. 20D. So no worries. So as you can see, guys, we answered specific questions and we went into detail and we proved to you what the investigators did, what they did well, and what they didn't do right, and what made sense and what didn't make sense, right? The investigators called in the cadaver dogs, called in the scent dogs. Did they use them effectively? No, they did not. No, they did not. So you've seen Kratz's own words, what the investigators are meant to be doing, right? They're meant to be finding Teresa Horbach or her body, alive or dead, and then start looking for forensic evidence, right? You need a cause to search further, right? And quite clearly, the way the crime scenes were documented between Cuss Road and Stephen Avery's burn pit were completely, utterly different. Why? Well, have a look at this. We're going to do a few more slides. Now, this makes no sense at all. So we can see that at Mitchell's Material Quarry, 3 cadaver dogs hit at the quarry, at this particular quarry. And as you can see, this quarry has got sand and gravel in it. And it's bounded by Avery Road and Highway 147. Now, what on earth are 3 cadaver dogs hitting at this site? Now, remember, a cadaver dog detects human decomposition. Those dogs are not specific for Teresa Horbach, but they detect human decomposition. So what is there? Is there blood? Is there bone? Is there skin? Is there hair? Is there teeth? What the hell is there? And notice it's the complete opposite to where Cuss Road is, right? So what on earth is present in Mitchell's material quarry, right? That the cadaver dogs hit upon. No, not one cadaver dog, but three of them. So Jack 61, are we able to look at the next slide, which is 20E? This is very, very interesting. So we'll just wait for Jack 61. So as you know, aerial photographs were taken of the salvage site and the surrounding quarries. And this is an aerial view of Mitchell's material quarry where 3 cadaver dogs hit, right? So 3 cadaver dogs hit. Now in this area, it's just sand and gravel. But note the proximity of this gravel pit next to the Avery salvage yard. It's bounded by Avery Road and Highway 147. And I remember a couple of weeks ago, somebody made a very interesting comment. Does anyone remember where Bobby Dassey found the deer? Because he said it was very close to his home. So was it on 147, Jack 61?
I think it was. And as I recall, didn't Barb call Bobby and say, "Look, somebody's hit a deer up here"? Yeah, I think it was 147, so. Doc. Yeah.
Yeah. So isn't that very interesting? But wait a minute, cadaver dogs, they're not going to hit upon a deer. They hit upon human decomposition. So what the hell is happening at Mitchell's material quarry? Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So Neville and I dug deep to find out what the hell occurred here, because I have to admit, guys in chat and on the panel, did anyone really know much about Mitchell's material quarry? I had no idea about Mitchell's material quarry. Alice, Jack, guys, did you know much about Mitchell's material quarry?
No, I just knew that there was quarries round about the salvage yard, and only one of them belonged to Manitowoc and Redaunt, so no, I didn't.
Yeah. Jack 61.
Yeah, I knew about it, Doc, but it's not one of these peripheral things. You just stick a pin in it, but you don't really dig too much after it.
All right. Now, let's have a look at what the official reports say. Just Rhonda, do you see slide 20F?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to read it? This is CASO, page 249, guys, if you're following it. Let's go for it, just Rhonda.
Okay. Type of activity, supplemental report, date of activity, 11/12/05. Reporting officer, Lieutenant Kelly Sipple. On the morning of 11/12/05, the state arson team returned to the Avery property to finish collecting several items of evidence. The first item of evidence they were able to collect would have been that of the burned garbage in an area that we refer to as the deer camp, located on the Redaunt property west-southwest of Stephen Avery's residence. The final 2 pieces would have been that of some bone and flesh located
Bone and flesh.
Yeah. Located in the Michaels Materials Quarry to the northeast of the Avery property. At 0900 hours on 11/12/05, I pulled all officers into the command post. We then began to break down the area, and at 11:28 a.m. on 11/12/05, Special Investigator Tom Fassbender turned the property back over to the Averys. Lieutenant Kelly Sipple of CASO.
All right, and we welcome Mary Coop, a cop who's just joined the chat. Welcome. But guys, am I reading this correct? But did he just say some bone and flesh? Jack 61, do you have a comment?
He did say that, and we don't. And to answer your question on the page here, no, there is not As far as I know, there's not a single photograph of Mitchell's quarry or of bone and flesh. Nothing they found. Nothing.
All right, now let's get this straight. We have 3 cadaver dogs, 3, that hit upon something in Mitchell's material quarry. 3. We have reports of people finding, or someone found, bone and flesh in Mitchell's material quarry, and it's picked up as forensic evidence. And I have never seen any picture, any in situ picture of bone or flesh or blood in Mitchell's material quarry. But quite clearly, somebody picked up the forensic evidence. Now, Jack 61, what the hell is going on?
I don't know, because I'm trying to think. We don't have any forensic reports about this either, do we?
Actually, we do, and I found that, and this is going to blow your mind. This is going to blow your mind. All right. So, to make matters worse, right, remember, this is a criminal investigation, a homicide investigation. They find bone and flesh. 3 cadaver dogs hit upon this area here. So what the hell happened? Well, Jack 61, if we have a look at the next slide, you're not going to believe this. But who do you think got called out to Mitchell's material quarry to investigate? And the answer is John Ertl and his team. Yep. Oh boy. They were called out to Mitchell's material quarry and saying, okay, what the hell is that Mitchell's material quarry? So his team went out there to find out what went on at this particular quarry. So the question is, what did his team find and do at Mitchell's material quarry? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide. So, of course, John Ertl was questioned about this. And I reckon, guys, if we can start at line 19. So the first couple of lines, this is Buting questioning Ertl. Jack 61, are you happy to read Buting, the part of Buting, which is the question?
Yep.
And I don't recall, are you happy to read the A for answer in blue?
Okay.
This is John Ertl. Let's start at line number 19. So basically, all they were doing up above was establishing that it was called Mitchell's Quarry. So let's start at 19. And guys in chat, take note of what they say. It's unbelievable. Jack 61.
All right. And then at this, there was some searcher, and apparently been there before, because there was was it an orange flag or something?
Right.
And you began working that, and you found something, did test positive for blood of some, just a second, blood sort, right?
Yes.
And again, you didn't know whether it was animal or human.
Right.
And to your knowledge, did that, whatever you found over there, eventually have anything at all to do with this case?
I don't know what happened to that sample after I collected it.
What the hell? What?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay, so you don't know whether that turned out to be flesh and blood that had anything to do with this case or not.
No, I don't.
Oh my God.
Now, let's get this straight. 3 cadaver dogs hit upon Mitchell's quarry, right? They send in Ertl and his team. They find something there, and nobody tells them the outcome of the results, and this is the crime lab head, John Ertl. Now, Jack 61, am I correct about what I said about the email that he sent to Tom Fassbender? Fuck
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah, big screw you in the damn ear.
Now, how in the hell, guys, all jokes aside, you're looking for Teresa Horbach. You're looking for a body. And nobody tells John Ertl what that flesh, blood, bone is. He's got no idea what actually happened to those samples. Guys, are we kidding or what? Jack 61.
We got to be living in the Twilight Zone. So here we are on the 12th. They've been there for days. Here we are on the 12th, and they still don't call a coroner in there to take over. Nothing.
No coroner. No coroner at all. I don't recall. Do you have a comment?
No, I'm sorry. I left it open.
Right. But if you think that's bizarre, just wait till you see the next page. Right. So can we have the same two readers? I think Jack 61, you're the person asking the question, and I don't recall you're Erdl, A for answer. So
Okay.
he was questioned further about this. Jack 61.
What assignments were you asked to perform?
Well, we were told of 3 areas where cadaver dogs had been interested. One of them was on the east side of Avery Road at the corner with 147. There was a gravel quarry, and there was maybe 30-foot tall mound of gravel and sand. And about 6 to 8 feet up the pile, the dog got excited about something. They said they would put an orange flag there, and they had seen a pinkish substance. So that was one place.
All right. Now, did you? Just to answer, Travis, I believe this is Stephen Avery's trial testimony, right, where John Erdl was questioned. Because John, don't worry, it gets even better. So, guys, did you see what John Erdl just wrote? A dog hit upon something 6 to 8 feet up the pile.
Yep.
Right? So, Jack 61.
Well, I mean, what the hell's going on here? There's a pinkish substance, and that dog is excited. So clearly they found something that's human. That's what I get out of it.
There's no question about it, right? Because these are cadaver dogs that detect human decomposition. But wait, it gets better. Can we have a look at the next page, please? So again, this is during Stephen Avery's trial testimony. Jack 61, would you like to read out the question? And
Yep.
I don't recall, would you like to read out the answer? Pay close attention what Erdl did. This is very important. Jack 61.
All right. And was anything of significance in your determination found at that gravel yard location?
We found some reddish staining on some pieces of gravel. They tested presumptive positive for the presence of blood. We located a pinkish substance, perhaps 3/4 of an inch in largest dimension, looked like flesh. We found another piece of material about the same size. It was reddish and white in color. Both of those items also tested presumptive positive for the presence of blood. We collected those, and then we proceeded to excavate that area under where those materials had been. So we dug 4 to 6 feet of gravel out of that area and placed it on a tarp, shovel by shovel, looking to see if we could find anything more. And we worked until dark, and it was about 5 p.m.
And did you find anything else?
We didn't find anything more.
Was there any evidence whatsoever that was any kind of burial site or any wrongdoing had occurred there?
Other than the presence of possibly blood and some flesh. At that point, we didn't know if it was animal or human, and collected it and didn't find any more. That was the extent of it.
And that's because the test was done did not distinguish between human or animal.
That's correct.
But the dog did.
Wow. Yeah, wow. So look what Erdl did. And this is very important. He dug where the material was found. They dug several feet of material and they placed it on a tarp. So guys, is it reasonable to say that he removed the scent source? Right? Because he actually dug around where the flesh, the blood, the bone, or whatever they found. He dug 4 to 6 feet of earth and removed it. So potentially he had removed the scent source. So if you bring in a cadaver dog again, a cadaver dog may not pick it up because you've removed the material and you dug around the area where the scent source was. Jack 61.
No, I completely agree with that. Yep.
Right? So I found what they found at the Mitchell's Material Quarry. I found it. So Jack 61, are you able to go to the next slide, please? This is where it really starts to get weird, right? So the two items that found their way to the crime lab was item AM and item AN. And you can see the tag numbers, 8320 and 8321. So item AM was described as stain rock from gravel mound. Item AN was described as tissue from gravel mound. There's no question about it. These are the items that were found at Mitchell's Material Quarry. Guys, do you agree? Do you agree? There's nothing else that resembles a stained rock, i.e. blood, or tissue anywhere else. Do you guys agree?
Absolutely.
Agree.
Yep. And
Yep.
guess who processed item AM and item AN? Guess who processed them?
That'll be your girlfriend.
Your girlfriend, Sherry.
My ex-girlfriend, Cherie Cohane, processed AM and AN. Now wait for this. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? Now, what I discovered by reading John Erdel's testimony, he's got the same credentials, in fact, higher credentials than Cherie Cohane. John Erdel is a DNA analyst. Did you know that, guys? He does the same work as Cherie Cohane does.
Yeah, I did know that. I don't know if everybody else did, but I did.
Yeah, he does DNA extractions. He does PCR. He does the whole lot. He's a DNA analyst, and I think he's got like a master's degree or whatever. Cherie Cohane doesn't. She's just got a science degree, right? Do you think John Erdel was slightly pissed that he was kept out of the loop and didn't process any forensic evidence despite going out and doing all the hack work? Jack 61, what do you reckon?
I bet he was mad as hell because he's definitely should have been one to process that. They dug it, so.
Yeah, so John Erdel never did any of these DNA extractions. Now, did John Erdel, was he called up to testify in Stephen Avery's civil suit trials? Did he give a deposition?
He did not.
Did John Erdel find forensic evidence against Stephen Avery in 1985?
He did not.
Was John Erdel involved in Stephen Avery's exoneration in 2003?
Not in any way at all.
Did John Erdel know who Stephen Avery was prior to 2005?
He said he didn't.
So who had a long association with Stephen Avery? Was it Cherie Cohane or John Erdel?
Your ex-girlfriend, Cherie Cohane.
My ex-girlfriend, Cherie Cohane, had a long history with Stephen Avery. Who put up their hand to be involved in the case and do all the swabbing and forensic testing? Was it John Erdel or Cherie Cohane?
Cherie. She wanted to do all the testing. She had all the swabs and all the samples.
Everything. John Erdel was kept out of the loop, right? This is what Cherie Cohane found with item AM and item AN. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So, of course, I checked all the DNA reports, read them, went through them years ago. I had no idea what these two items were, but lo and behold, you can see it. Item AM item AN. So Cherie Cohen processed them. So what did she actually do? Jack 61. Get ready, guys. Get ready. So she obviously analyzed those two samples, and this is the conclusion that she came to in her paper, right? Because she had to write a report. Alice, do you see that? Slide 20p?
Yes, Doc. I see it.
Can you read it out? This is all the analysis that Cherie Cohen did. Go for it, Alice.
Chemical analysis of reddish brown stains from the rock, item AM, and the possible tissue, item AN, indicated the presence of blood. However, these stains were not human in origin.
Guys, if your jaw hasn't hit the ground, it should. Bloody hell. How on earth could Cherie Cohen say they're not human in origin when she never did a DNA extraction to prove otherwise? Alice.
Full shit. And you know, she's the one who got Steven off in the 2003 with the DNA. So as far as the state was concerned, she owed them, because if it wasn't for her doing the DNA and everything like that, he might not have got out. But then, I mean, Innocence Project probably would have just went somewhere else and got it tested. But nonetheless, that's my opinion. That's my speculation. She's a fucking idiot, and she was useless, and she shouldn't have been anywhere near this case because she was involved in the last fucking case. It's as simple as that, Doc.
Now hold on. I think most intelligent people can tell the difference between animal fur and human skin, right? Because if it was fur from a deer, you say, "Hey, come on, that's animal in origin. What are we doing? What are we wasting our time?" However, 3 cadaver dogs hit on that area, 3 of them. They detect human decomposition, right? John Erdl, right, Jack 61, right, guys? He was not even told that Cherie Cohen said, no, they're not human in origin. So she didn't process them. She dismissed them. She said, yeah, they're presumptive positive for blood because John Erdl did the testing. However, they're non-human in origin. Now, wait a minute. Imagine if Cohen extracted the DNA profile belonging to Teresa Halbach. Is that slightly embarrassing or what, Jack 61?
It would have been, oh my God, they would have went ape shit. I mean, completely. But how could she possibly know what if it was animal if she didn't do the test? There's no way.
No,
She lied.
no, you got to test it. You got to test it by using antibodies, by getting in a forensic anthropologist and extracting DNA. If that's tissue, if that's human skin, there'll be a ton of DNA present in that sample. If you had blood, you can potentially extract DNA from that blood. Check it. Is it human? How in the bloody hell can Cohen say these stains? Notice, she didn't even mention tissue. She said these stains were not human in origin. I read this years ago, and I'm thinking to myself, what are they talking about? And now, with Ferak's book, it's now brought everything together beautifully. And I've done additional research with Neverly, and there you go. Boom, it's there. So they went to Mitchell's material quarry. 3 cadaver dog hits that isolated blood, that isolated tissue. And here Cohen is saying, nothing to see here. Does that remind you of a clandestine burial site where there was nothing to see here? Alice?
Yeah, definitely, Doc. Definitely, Doc. But I mean, that's just as bad as the Laboob, as I like to call him. But it's Labo, the FBI agent who got sent 6 samples, tested 3 of the samples, but then wrote a report and said, oh, the samples were the same and that there was no EDTA in them at all. You know what I mean? Bollocks. Try doing your fucking job properly. If she didn't know whether it was human or not, she should have got a second opinion and no wrote a report that's full of lies and fucking stupidity.
Sure. 100% correct. But guys, here's the scary bit. And I apologize if I'm being a bit insensitive. But could it be possible that a wild animal found this tissue, bone, whatever, and picked it up from one location and brought it down to Mitchell's material quarry and then dropped it? Is that possible? Is it possible?
Yes, it could be possible. Because remember, Doc, she's supposed to have been cut up. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Where she was cut up, we don't know. So,
Correct.
yeah, that is a possibility that an animal, a wild animal, which is lost because there's deer and boar or hogs or whatever it is, you know, and people hunt and stuff like that. So, yeah,
Correct.
that is a possibility that a wild animal could have foraged, came across it,
Yep.
picked up something, or it could have even been stuck to their fur. And,
Correct.
you know, they could have stepped in it. They could have laid down to scratch themselves or something like that. And it's attached to them that way as well, not necessarily meaning that it's had it in its mouth. You know what I mean? Could have been on
Yeah.
its paw or its fur or
Yeah.
anything like that. So, yes,
And
Doc, that is a possibility.
yeah, sorry about that. But Andy B goes, how long was Bear's chain? Well, don't laugh, because they collected Bear's stool because they thought that he had eaten part of Teresa Orbach, right?
Yeah.
Of course, there was nothing in his stool. But this opens up an avenue that I knew nothing about, right? If that is Teresa's flesh, how did it get there? And how in the hell did Sharika Hain come to the conclusion, it's not human, let's forget about it? You have to extract DNA. You got to do testing, use antibodies, put it under a microscope, call a forensic anthropologist. Surely that doesn't make any sense, right? And now,
Sorry, Doc. Travis in chat has got an excellent question. He says, why is Errol called out to County Quarry and Michael's Quarry to collect and document samples, but not Cuss Road?
Well, he was called to Cuss Road. He was called to Cuss Road fairly late, and he's the one that said, yeah, I dug. I found roots, I found the peat moss bag, and I found a rotten pallet. So he was there. And he was there with his photographer. He didn't take any photographs that we know of, that we've seen, of what he dug out, Stephen Avery's burn pit, and at Mitchell's material quarry. He probably has photographs and he's kept them because we haven't seen them. Jack 61, is that possible? Could he have photographs that we have not seen?
It's very possible because remember, and this started last year, I requested 206 photographs that Officer Block from the city police took. Uyghur says the CD won't load, this degraded, you can't have them, request denied. There are other photographs too. Again, like I was saying before, they want a description of what's in these photographs, but we don't have a description. There's nothing that we can say. So absolutely, these photographs could exist.
Correct. And also we welcome Sarge, who's just joined the chat. So guys, can you see that we haven't made anything up here? We've dug deep. We've dived deep in official testimony, CASO reports, lab reports, and we've presented it to you. Quite clearly, no one's telling Erdl anything. They're telling jack shit to Erdl. Why? He went out there, he got the material, and no one told him whether it was pertinent to the case or not. All of a sudden, Culhane goes, oh yeah, not human in origin. That's the end of you see of item AM and item AN. Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So quite clearly, this is a legitimate question, right? And I want to know, how did Cherie Culhane demonstrate that the material that 3 cadaver dogs hit upon was non-human? Can anyone in chat, can anyone on the panel answer that question? When the hell did Culhane say, no, not human? Alice, any idea? How did Culhane come up to that? How did she come up to that conclusion?
She's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, but guys, can you see that this is significant? If that flesh, if that skin, if that blood was Teresa Horbach's, the hell were they going to explain it?
Yep.
What, Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey are now climbing up to 8 feet up a rock pile? That doesn't make any sense. I don't recall. What about yourself? How did Culhane come up to this conclusion?
Kind of like Pam of God, probably.
Yep, another Pam of God moment. Jack 61.
Oh, Doc, I think she knew she had to come to that conclusion, because if it pointed to, yeah, this was human and it could be Teresa potentially, how were they going to explain that? It had to be non-human, and that's what she did without doing anything. Dismissed it.
Correct. Just Rhonda, what about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with Jack. She had to dismiss it somehow, and just saying not that it was non-human was probably in her mind, if it's possible, the
Right.
most likely way to do that.
Right. But the thing is this, if she actually knew the answer, and that was the genomic DNA profile of Teresa Horbach, Houston, we've got a problem. You have to admit, all of a sudden the dogs are hitting off the Avery salvage yard. The dogs are hitting at Cuss Road. The dogs are hitting at Mitchell's Material Quarry. And Ken Kratz is saying to you and me and everyone in chat, Teresa Horbach never left the property, nor her RAV4. And the dogs are giving a different picture. They're telling a different story. There's no way that Culhane could say, yeah, that's Teresa Horbach's genomic profile there. That's her skin. What the hell? So how did she get away with it? By saying non-human. End the party. Now, guys, you have to admit, I've never heard of this before. And yet we've shown the roadmap of how Earl, the cadaver dogs, and Cherie Culhane were all involved in processing that forensic evidence. And she concluded that it was non-human. Now, we'll do a couple of more slides. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't hallucinating. So, Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. So, Kratz questioned Julie Kramer, right? Now, have a look at the answer that Julie Kramer gave. So Kratz wanted to know about these cadaver dogs, what they do, right? Jack 61, are you happy to read Ken Kratz, the part of Ken Kratz?
Absolutely.
And just Rhonda, do you see the slide 20R?
Yes.
Can you read Julie Kramer, which is the answer? Now, guys, pay close attention to what Kratz asks and what Julie Kramer answers. Jack 61.
I was going to try to do Susan, but I'm just going to read it because I can't.
Just
I can't do.
Jack 61. No one could do Kratz. No one could do Kratz like Susan.
No.
Travis wants to know, are Sherry's reports reviewed and signed off on?
Yes, they are.
Oh, okay.
And guess who sees the reports? Peg Lockenschlotter.
Oh,
The
Lockenschlager.
Attorney
Yeah,
General. The Attorney General.
yeah, that's right.
Right? She's got to sign off on them.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
let's go for it, guys.
All right, line 3. How is a human remain detection dog or the scent given off different than, let's say, a bloodhound, a live scent search that we do?
The scent isn't given off any differently, but the difference is when a person is alive, your scent is very specific. Each of us smells differently. It's almost as individual as a fingerprint would be. And so a live dog, a bloodhound, is given an article of clothing and they go out and follow that scent as it comes off a person. When a person dies, your body begins to decompose. And it's that chemical and gas changes in the body that a human remains detection dog is trained to find. And that human remains smell the same. We all start to smell the same after we're deceased. And so a human remains detection dog is trained to find that smell as opposed to dead animals, dead fish, or other smells. So it's a similar type of training, but they are trained on different sources.
All right. Did you see what I just did? Right?
Yeah.
Julie Kramer, who handles Brutus and other cadaver dogs, said, and I quote, and so a human remains detection dog is trained to find that smell as opposed to dead animals, dead fish, or other smells.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no way that 3 cadaver dogs hit upon a non-human source. They detected human decomposition in the blood and the flesh, and Cherie Cohane just usurped 3 cadaver dogs and said non-human in origin. Jack 61.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if it wasn't for the dogs reacting when they took them over, and then, maybe I'm just misremembering, but Ertl didn't say which dog it was, but apparently they had a dog with them when they went back, called over there, and the dog was excited. So there's potentially a 4th dog or one of the other 3 that was already there. So
Correct. Because remember in Kramer's report, she said that there were other civilian handlers with
right.
their dogs. Other
Midwest
civilian handlers.
and Midwest Canine, which sounds to me like it's a company we don't have jack shit from.
Correct. So again, there are a lot of dogs out there. All right. So guys, I reckon what we do, we'll do a couple of more slides and then we'll call it quits. Have we done almost 3 hours, Jack 61?
We've been just about 3 hours.
Just
Yeah.
a second, and I can tell you. We have been on for 3 hours and 2 minutes. 3 hours and 3 minutes.
Yeah. Obviously, we can't finish the podcast. We'll have to do a part 6, but we've covered a hell of a lot. So if we have a look at slide 20S, Jack 61, would you like to read it? So now we are back on Ferak's book, Jack 61, if you'd like to read 20S.
Yep, just 1 second. Scroll back over here. Okay. Quote, we then proceeded to a location we were requested to check on Cuss Road where a potential burial site had been dislocated. Canine Brutus checked the area, and after passing the area upon entry in the wooded area, he gave a head check returning to the location and gave his bark alert number 12, and seemed particularly interested in a shovel lying next to the disturbed earth. According to the Kramers, quote, Canine Trace checked the wooded area first and did not alert, but did show interest, increased animation, and high head. high head checks. Upon returning to the area a second time, Canine Brutus again barked and alerted near the area of disturbed earth. Later on, the pair of dogs drew a new assignment close to the Avery compound.
All
Quote,
right,
oh,
before you go on Jack 61,
okay,
before you go on Jack 61. So there were definitely alerts at the clandestine burial site, and I read Kramer's report, and Brutus did give a hit on the shovel, but then they separated the shovel. The dogs were called back. They didn't show much interest in the shovel, but Brutus alerted at the clandestine burial site. Now, notice what happened at Mitchell's quarry. When the cadaver dogs went in first, they hit. When they came back one day after Deidring told the dog handler to go back with the cadaver dogs and check at Mitchell's quarry, they didn't give an alert, which meant that what they've done is they've removed the scent source. And we've just shown that Earl dug it out, right, Jack 61? So when
That's
the cadaver dogs came back the next day, they're there. Well, what the hell are you talking about? There's nothing here. So they effectively removed the scent source. So here's speculation. Did they do that at Cuss Road? Was the scent source removed and they bring in the dogs? Jack 61.
I absolutely think so. Absolutely.
Yep.
They sanitized the area.
They sanitized the area, but Brutus still gave an alert at the clandestine burial site. He gave a bark. Very, very interesting. All right, Jack 61, would you like to continue?
Yep. Quote, at the exterior of the home, Brutus again barked at the door and scratched to enter the residence. Canine Trace also barked at the front door. Once inside the trailer, Canine Brutus proceeded to check the interior, alerting inside a bedroom at the bed and pile of clothing. He was very agitated, but no scent source was noticed. End quote. That particular trailer, however, was not Avery's. It belonged to his older brother, Chuck. To reiterate, most of the police focus remained off-site away from the Averys.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, K9 Brutus was then sent to check the berm just west of Stephen Avery's property. There was a report of suspicious-looking pile of disturbed earth. Brutus showed no interest in that pile, but did alert on a pile of brush and trash just west of the Avery residence, and was very excited along the edge of the berm. This excitement continued as we proceeded south along this ridge, and he carefully checked brushy areas west of the Avery yard and along the edge of the salvage yard. His behavior was noted by law enforcement personnel in the area, who indicated that man trailing bloodhounds had also been interested in the same area. Back at the command post, Julie Kramer compared notes with the others. Quote, we met with the bloodhound handlers on scene, and it was noted that both the live scent dogs and the human remains detection dogs had shown excessive interest in the ridge of land beginning behind Stephen Avery's residence and running south to the corner of the salvage yard, where the gravel conveyor is located. This area seems to be of particular interest to the dogs, although no scent source has been located in that area. End quote.
All right. So what we'll do, we'll leave the podcast here because the next section is going to require a lot of explanation. But guys, here's the upshot. And this is important. You got both cadaver dogs and scent dogs that are hitting on particular berm locations past Stephen Avery's property. And they're showing a lot of excitement and alerts. So you might argue that a cadaver dog is non-specific for Teresa Horbach, and they're not. They detect human decomposition. However, the scent dogs are a different story. The scent dogs were scented with Teresa's scent. They're looking for Teresa Horbach. And guys, you have to admit that when a cadaver dog and a scent dog are hitting in the same location, that's a high point of interest, right, guys? You may argue with a cadaver dog, well, potentially could be picking up methane, potentially could be picking up somebody else, and that's 100% correct. But when you have an area or areas of interest, and we'll do this in the next podcast, we'll probably finish the series then, you could tell that if a cadaver dog and a scent dog are both showing excitement at one spot, one location, you got to take note of that. And quite clearly, the dog handlers were talking to each other thinking, hey, wait a minute, there are certain hot spots where these dogs are hitting. And notice, they're not around the burn pit. They're not in the garage. They're not in Stephen's trailer. They are around his property. So let's summarize very quickly what we've got so far, right? We've got dog activity at Cuss Road. They're very interested at Cuss Road. The investigators prevent Loof from crossing the crime scene tape, right? We've got cadaver dog hits at Mitchell's Material Quarry. They found, and it's been written down, bone, blood, possibly flesh, and several pieces of them. They go to the crime lab and Sharika Hain goes, nothing to see here, guys. Non-human. She didn't even test them to say how she arrived at that conclusion. So you've got cadaver dogs, scent dogs hitting all around the Avery salvage site. And what do the investigators, what does Mr. Kratz do about all this information? Ignore it. Ignore it. And yet, quite clearly here, guys, we've deep dived. We haven't made anything up. We've used their own documents, their own official reports. There's something weird going on, right? The state are saying Teresa Horbach nor her RAV4 ever left the property. Stephen Avery killed her. Brendan Dassey killed her. And yet, the dogs aren't concentrating their scent or hits around Stephen Avery's trailer, around the burn pit. You can't blame Bear. These dogs are on a mission. They're not going to stop, right? And all of a sudden, these dogs are going outside of the property, outside of the boundaries. The dogs are telling a story that the investigators don't want to know about. And you saw Ken Kratz. He asked Julie Kramer, what do these dogs pick up? And Julie Kramer says, they don't pick up dead animals. They don't pick up dead fish. They pick up human decomposition. So something weird is going on here. All right. So look, guys, again, thank you so much. We've covered a hell of a lot, but we haven't skimped on anything. We've gone into detail about what these canines found. And in the next podcast, we've got a treat for you. We're going to look at the dog tracks, not all of them, but some of them are in strategic order and what they found and how the investigators use that information to trick and entrap Stephen Avery. And then at the end, we're going to meet Mike Bushman and what he did at the clandestine burial site. So we've got a lot of good stuff installed for you. And whoever would have thought from one chapter, we're now going to go to 6, probably 7 parts. But I believe it has been worth it, guys. Please tell us in chat whether you have enjoyed the chapter so far and the research that the Foul Play team has done. Now notice we haven't sensationalized anything. We haven't tricked anybody. We've used official documents and reports. And I think that's the proper way of doing it. Well, look, guys, again, if you enjoy what we've done, please subscribe, like, and share our work. We're open. ask as many questions as you want. I read all the comments in chat and I try and answer them as diligently as I can. But guys, that's enough from me. I like to go around the panel. Tell us how you've been coming along and what do you think of the podcast so far? Jack61, you're coming in and out of Cuss Road. You're worrying me there, Jack61.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on with my camera. I turned it on and then it disappeared again. There we go. I guess because I turned the lights down in here a little bit, but I mean, it's not dark or anything, so I don't know what the hell's going on. Anyway, this has been a real learning experience for me, and I've been in this case since the beginning. I mean, since right after Ma'am aired, and this has been and I've read about the dogs, and you know, a little bit more than peripheral reading, but not like this. This has been great. It's been a real learning experience for me, and I suspect for probably everyone here, and the shenanigans that were pulled. And it makes me, you know, I don't know that I can find them, but there's 3 open records requests that I've definitely got mine in writing, probably 4, and now I'm probably going to add a 5th one because I'm going to try to find this K9 Midwest K9 organization and see if we can find anything. I don't know if they have anything or not. They may not, but I want to know if there's other reports out there that we don't have.
Yes. And
So,
whether anyone spotted Bushman with a dog.
that too, that would be really interesting if we could get, you know, somebody off that search team list to say, yeah, he had his dog with him. God, that would be gold. That'd be absolute gold.
Oh, that's a touchdown.
Yep. Other than that, Doc, we've been doing dispatch calls for the last several weeks. We're going to break from that for the open mic tomorrow. We're going back to depositions.
Nice.
We're in the beginning of August 2006. And we've got some really good ones coming up. I don't know how good these are tomorrow. I think they should be interesting, but we got some really good ones after these. I know we've got some coming up, Mark Rohr, and you know, just a really good handful that are really interesting, and they do really reveal a lot of good information. So we're going to start back into those at least for tomorrow's open mic, 5 p.m. Central. So come and join us if you can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack61. Fantastic. Next, we have Alice. Alice, how are you coming along?
Yeah, doing okay, Doc. Thanks. Thanks to everyone in chat who's joining us. It's been a great podcast, Doc. Just the amount of detail and everything like that you've been able to uncover. It's actually been really, really good. So I'm really enjoying this series, Reading with the Crew. So, in this chapter especially, I mean, the depths that you've went to do the scent dogs and everything like that is absolutely fantastic. So applause to you and Neverly for taking on this massive quest. And you are doing fantastic so far.
Thank you.
As for myself, just really trying to promote. As you can see, my icon's changed.
Yes.
It will be like that for a wee while. Just trying to promote the peaceful protest that we're going to have for Luke's case. And that protest is going to be on the 13th of May, and it's outside the Edinburgh Scottish Parliament. 12:30 people will be gathering from, and it's a peaceful protest. So
Nice.
you can bring banners and signs and things like that. That's more than welcome, but it is a peaceful protest. So if you're in the area or surrounding the areas or even in Glasgow and you can make it through, all is welcome, which is fantastic. For anybody that doesn't know, what it is, it's a wrongful conviction case here in the UK of Luke Mitchell, 14, and he's been accused of killing his girlfriend, who was also 14 at the time. The thing I can suggest to you most, there's lots out there about the story, but the main thing I can tell you is if you look up murder in a small town, that will fill you in on recent details. Details from it happened up until 2020. Yeah, 2020, I think it was that it came out. 2021 was when the documentary came out. So please go and watch that.
And
And I will
sorry
keep
to
you in
interrupt,
touch.
Alice, but also the Foul Play team interviewed Dr. Sandra Lean, and that was an incredible
Yes,
interview. She was
yes,
fantastic.
yes. And she has says that she will come back on with us on Foul Play Doc. She has says that. The last protest we were at, after the protest, we had a wee gathering in the pub, went for a wee drink. So I got to speak to Sandra herself and Scott as well, and talking about the case. And I did mention about coming back on for a second interview with us, and she says that she would be happy to. So I mean that's a good thing, and there is lots that has happened
Yes.
since since the interview that we did do with Sandra, which is unbelievable. So hopefully maybe some point next week. I'm not sure if it'll be the beginning of the week or what. I'm hoping to maybe get a video done just to get the new information out there. Because there's a professor, Professor David Wilson, he's called, and he is a criminologist, and he does, like true crime dramas and stories and things like that for TV. And we've been wanting him to get involved for a while, just to
It'll
even
be a
look at
very
the case,
it'll be a
you
very
know.
compelling story. It really
Well,
would
he
be.
did actually got time finally to look at the case, and he's actually written a whole article about the doc. And he says in that article that he cannot see for any reason why Luke Mitchell was sentenced, never mind, got charged, never mind convicted of this case, because he can't see nothing that ties Luke to the case. And that's one of the biggest criminologists that we refer to in the UK that is actually saying that, So keep things open, and I will certainly try and get all this new information out to everybody, and then hopefully maybe do a full play
It'll
update
be
type
awesome.
thing.
Yeah, that's what we need.
Yeah, and maybe get Sandra back on. If we don't do it before the protest, I can always speak to her at the protest and maybe arrange something, a
We'll
date or whatever, to
yes.
come back onto Foul Play.
Yeah.
And we can get that, because Luke needs our help as well. So every little
True.
bit helps. Oh, there's a petition as well. Sorry, this is the last thing. There is a new petition going as well for Luke. If one of the mods can maybe link it for me, if not, I will find it. It is pinned on my Twitter page, so if you've got me on Twitter, please go click on it, sign the petition, and then please share it, because the more people that can sign it, the better. So thanks very much, Doc.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Alice. Yeah, we would love to get Sandra and the other gentleman on for an update. That was a remarkable interview, it really was. Thank you so much. And next we have I Don't Recall. How are you coming along?
Good, and I think that would be great to have Sandra on again too. Just doing, working with Rhonda when I can on the her podcast about Daniel, and trying to keep up with what you all are doing, and really enjoying this podcast. I've learned a lot.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
there's much more. There's much more to learn as well. So yeah, keep in tune. Keep in tune. Thank you so much. I Don't Recall. And next we have Just Rhonda. Just Rhonda, how about yourself? How are you coming along?
Doc, thank you. I'm doing okay. Just just preparing for podcasts and getting more information out about Daniel's case.
Yes.
Of course, and um, his attorney's working on his post-conviction relief. So I don't know where they're at in that exactly, but I know that it's being worked on, and exhibits are
yeah,
being prepared and such. So,
I think if they can debunk the DNA,
yeah,
forensic evidence of Adara Gardner, the
right,
state are going to be in a shitload of trouble. That's where they've
right.
got
And
to focus on, because that's where they pinned him on that.
that's where,
Just
yeah,
that.
exactly. And that's
Just
what
that.
the jurors said too.
Yep.
It was the DNA that changed their, that
Yep.
made them vote guilty. So,
Correct.
it's definitely, hopefully, I mean, I know that I know that your breakdown of that, how they've been reviewing that. So I know that,
Awesome.
they're trying to use it in some way. So, um, but, and then just again, really quick, I just wanted to remind too, um, that we're keeping our eyes open on the Richard Glossop case in Oklahoma City. His execution date is set for May 18th, which is a Thursday, and he's pretty much run the course of all even the Attorney General wasn't able to get anywhere with his request that he made to have the case vacated. He didn't get anywhere. I understand that it's going to be now given to the Supreme Court, the United States SCOTUS. So, with any luck, hopefully he can get some relief at the uh, Supreme Court. Other
Yes.
than that, Oklahoma, he's stuck with their governor, being wishy-washy about what he may or may not do for Richard Glossop. But at this point, it looks like the uh, execution at this point is going to take place on May 18th. So, and that happens to be on a Thursday. And if he does not get another stay of execution, anything that I do that night will be revolving around Richard Glossop and instead of Daniel that night.
Yeah.
So,
Understood.
anyway,
Understood.
yeah, this,
Yeah, it's unfortunately, like I'm from Australia, and I'm looking in, and when a human life is being used as a political football, it's not good. You're in deep, deep trouble, and that's why I'm so interested in the cases that you do and Alice does, and especially in the Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey cases, because it's all become very political. And
yeah,
by going over the material very meticulously, very, very carefully, you could tell that there are alternative stories out there that the state don't want you to know about or even ask any questions. And through your good work, through Alice's good work, through the foul play team, we're digging deep. And I think we're showing the shenanigans that are taking place, which is just amazing. All right, guys. Well, look, thank you so much. I'd like to thank all my esteemed panel members for their knowledge and wisdom. I'm great to be part of this team. A small cog in this team is just incredible. And I'd like to thank everyone in chat. Thank you so much. We've got a good crowd, a lot of people here. Please subscribe, like, and share. And on that note, guys, we will see you all next week. In fact, tomorrow for the Open Mic podcast. Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
And this has been a Foul Play production.